My name is Ryuk, and for 19 years I begged the sky for a system. I let a monster hit me hoping the brush with death would wake something up, and nothing answered. Then it booted, an urban rich man system built for a modern city that does not exist here. I spent 6 spirit stones on dinner out of curiosity, and it paid me 300 back for enjoying my food. My cheat does not want me to save, it wants me to spend. If you want more like this, drop a like and subscribe. That is the deal between us and the algorithm. But the road here is longer than I just made it sound. Let me walk you through it. The clouds over the Guyang mountain range never break. They roll along the ridges like surf all year, and the halls of the Juhong sword sect surface and sink inside them. We are one of the 6 major sects of Jin province, which sounds impressive until you find out where they house someone like me. The entry-level disciple residence sits at the outermost edge of everything. Bluestone foundations, spirit wood beams, spirit gathering formation patterns cut into the base to draw the mountain's spiritual chi in day and night. It could be a worse place to fail in. Inside one of those rooms I sit cross-legged, with my hands sealed on my knees and my eyes shut. I run a full grade cycle, and the last of it leaves me as turbid chi that hangs in the air as pale mist. Then I open my eyes and feel the bitterness rise from somewhere underneath them. Still not working. My cultivation speed is too slow, and at this rate I will not reach the standard this year either. I roll off the bed and push the shutter open, and the mountain wind comes in wrapped in cloud. On the far hillside, a few fellow disciples are drilling sword arts, the sword light flickering, the sound of breaking air arriving thin and late. I watch them a while and end up smiling at myself, because there is nothing else to do with the 5th year of a 5-year assessment. The rules of the Jeomhong sword sect are complicated if you want them complicated and simple if you do not. Your first 5 years inside the gate are a gift, resources handed out monthly, no labor asked, nothing to do but cultivate. All of it buys the sect one answer, which is whether you are worth continuing to feed. Step into mid-stage chi refining inside those 5 years, and you become an official outer sect disciple. Fail, and you are reduced to a utility disciple. Those 2 words sit on my chest like a stone somebody set down and forgot. A utility disciple has every free resource withdrawn, and takes on the daily labor of the sect instead. Planting spirit rice, felling spirit wood, tending the medicine garden, every task of it slow and heavy and eating the whole day. The contribution points those jobs pay out are pitiful, and the hours left for cultivation shrink to nothing worth counting. Once you step onto that road, breaking through later is the kind of thing people say out loud to comfort each other, and I am still a considerable distance from the mid-stage threshold, which is the part I cannot argue my way around. I close the window and sit back down, thumbing the gold thread sword pattern on the cuff of my disciple uniform without meaning to. 4 years ago, I walked through the mountain gate wearing this, and I have never in either life felt taller. I came out of a third-rate cultivation family in the Wool Kingdom, where producing one descendant who could enter the Jeomhong sword sect was something generations had not dared imagine out loud. When the spirit testing platform read my medium-grade spiritual root, the clan elders escorting me burst into tears on the spot. The old man's lips shook a long time before he got out. One whole sentence about heaven blessing the Ryuk family. The family threw a banquet that ran half a month. My father told every person he met on the road that his son was a Jeomhong disciple, and his back was straighter that month than it had ever been. My mother packed my bags with red eyes and a smile she refused to drop, telling me not to be cruel to myself up there. I could not make my parents proud in my previous life. In this one I managed it at 15, and then I spent 4 years not managing anything else. When I close my eyes, the faces of my batch go past one after another. In our 2nd month, a young girl broke through to mid-stage chi refining, and her name was Mok Un-seo. The sect master took her as a personal disciple in person, and the news ran the length of Jin province. In the 10th month, 2 more teenagers broke through and were pulled straight into the inner sect. Every year since, somebody from my batch has crossed that line. This is already the 5th year. A third of us have stepped into the outer sect, and the rest are quietly winding up for one last push. I am not a genius, and I stopped needing anyone to tell me so a long time ago. A genius meditates for 1 day and gets what takes me 10. They read a cultivation technique and understand it at a single point, while I chew the same formula until it barely goes down. Some nights I would stare at the rubbing of a technique and recognize every character on it, and the moment they were put together they turned into fog. In 4 years I've hardly slacked off for a single day, and my progress still moves like an old ox pulling a cart uphill. Fine, a utility disciple it is. I tip my head back and the wooden pillow meets my skull with a dull knock that leaves my scalp numb, and somehow that solid, stupid little pain helps more than the thinking did. I lie there staring at the beam and tell myself the true thing, which is that a utility disciple of the Jeomhong sword sect still eats better than most people alive. There is food, there is a roof, and nobody is hunting me. I grew up watching loose cultivators die in the mouths of monster beasts, or get crushed for offending the wrong person, with nobody left to collect the body. Under a tree the size of this sect. At least the rain lands on somebody else. People have to learn to be content, I tell myself, tugging my mouth into the shape of a smile. Maybe if I get lucky later on. I do not finish the sentence, because I am already sitting bolt upright. A translucent blue light screen has opened out of nothing in front of my face. A faint gold halo running around its edge. Lines of text surfacing across it. My breathing stops for one whole beat, and then something reaches into my chest and grabs my heart. The screen tells me, in the flat, cheerful register of a thing that has waited a very long time to say this, that charging is complete, and startup is successful. It says the urban rich man system has loaded. It says the system is committed to the host's comprehensive development in moral, intellectual, physical, and aesthetic terms, so that the host may become a perfect urban god-tier tycoon and live a happy life. A system. I read web novels for years before I died the first time, so there is not one syllable of this I need explained. My hands close on their own. I have been transmigrated for 19 years, and for most of them I wondered whether I had one too, waiting on the right trigger. I sat in meditation under the moon until dawn. I said the word out loud to an empty room more times than I want to admit. I once stood still and took a monster beast's blow on purpose, gambling on an awakening between life and death, and every last piece of it came to nothing. Eventually I stopped, so the broken thing needed charging, and it wanted 19 years of it. Wait, the delight on my face freezes before it is finished arriving. I blink and keep staring at the 6 words in the middle of the screen. An urban rich man system. I am not in a modern city. I am in the cultivation world, where there is no business district, no sports cars, no stock market, and no route by which a man becomes an urban god-tier tycoon. I feel like I was carried above the clouds and dropped without ceremony, and by the time I land there is one thought left in me. This system has been delivered to the wrong address. Moral, intellectual, physical, and aesthetic development in the cultivator at Foundation Establishment can take a small mountain apart with one hand, so whose physique am I supposed to be improving on? High-level cultivators deduce the secrets of heaven inside a single thought, which puts intelligence somewhat beyond a morning of reading. As for beauty, this world is stuffed wall-to-wall with handsome men and beautiful women, every one of them better looking than the last once the marrow is cleansed and the bones are cut. Then there is money, which matters more than all three combined. The hard currency here is spirit stones, medicinal pills, and magic artifacts, and nobody in this realm has ever held the paper money a tycoon back home would have counted. The screen keeps moving. The startup lines thin out and blow away like smoke, and new content comes up underneath. It knows my name and my age, 19. It puts my physique at 1.9 and notes admiringly that my physical quality far exceeds a human's. It puts my intelligence at 1 and compares me to a top scientist. It puts my charm at 0.9 and compares me to a superstar, which lands strangely in a room whose only mirror is the size of my palm. My spiritual root is medium grade and sitting at 0 out of 1,000. My skills are the heavy sword art at level 2 with 11 of 200 and the firebomb technique at level 2 with 21 of 200. The dust removal technique sits at level 3 with 13 of 150. My total wealth is 3 low-grade spirit stones and 1 chi condensing pill, which it reports without visible embarrassment. Then it names something called Tycoon's Confidence, currently at level 1. That pays me 1 low-grade spirit stone every hour, on the grounds that money is the confidence a god-tier tycoon runs on, and it upgrades once I have consumed 100 low-grade spirit stones. Under that come the daily tasks, and this is where I stop breathing properly. Run 6 li and my physique rises by 0.1, because a god-tier tycoon needs a healthy body as well as money. Read attentively for 1 hour and my intelligence rises the same, because a rich man with no ink in his chest is merely nouveau riche. Rest for 4 hours and my charm rises, since good rest improves a host's energy, spirit, and skin. Finish all 3 and 50 points of general experience land on top. My heartbeat climbs with every line until it is trying to leave through my ribs. I pull in a breath hard enough to drag every wisp of spiritual mist in the room down my throat. That was, I admit, considerably louder than a man alone in a room should be capable of. Sunlight comes through the gaps in the carved window and lies in patches on the bluestone floor. I am still on the couch with my eyes on the panel. Physique, intelligence, and charm are 3 things I have never once thought about. Once you step onto the road of cultivation, spiritual chi washes the physical body day and night, and a cultivator ends up past a mortal without trying. As an early-stage chi refining cultivator, I was never short in those columns. What has my breath running hot is the other 2 things entirely. Tycoon's Confidence, and that daily task list. 1 low-grade spirit stone every hour. 12 waking hours a day makes 12 stones, and a month of that makes 360. During the assessment period, the sect hands an entry-level disciple 10 a month at the absolute best, and that is the treatment inside a major sect. This is free, and it is not money earned by putting my life on a mission board and hoping. The God-tier tycoon system is offering me 36 times what the sect gives me for the crime of continuing to exist. Disciples from wealthy houses, whose families keep pouring resources up the mountain, do not always clear that much in a month. With that many stones, I can buy chi condensing pills, chi nourishing pills, and spirit gathering powder in quantity instead of one careful piece at a time. My cultivation speed stops being a joke, and the part that makes my hands unsteady is that the thing upgrades. Level 1 is 360 a month, and nobody has told me yet what level 2 is. I make myself settle and move down to the general experience column instead. General experience improves skills, and general experience can also improve a spiritual root. Those two words come down on me like a hammer. 4 years of cultivation and I am still loitering in early stage chi refining for exactly one reason, and it is not effort. A medium grade spiritual root gets called superior talent in a small enough town, and inside the Jiamhong sword sect it is the floor. Every batch arrives carrying high grade and peak grade roots, and nobody finds that remarkable. Mok Unseol surfaces in my head without being invited. The girl who broke through to mid-stage chi refining in our second month had a super grade spiritual root, a full rung above anything the rest of us were carrying. The sect master came down in person and the whole residence turned into a festival for a week. I stood at the back of that crowd watching a girl in white with people packed around her, and I have never envied anything so cleanly. Spiritual roots are innate. The methods for raising one afterward are few, and every one of them is precious enough that powerful cultivators kill each other over it. Except now general experience can do it. If my root climbs to high grade, to peak grade, to super grade, or one day to the legendary spiritual body, then every calculation I have made about my own life is garbage. I press my lips together and feel something catch light behind my eyes, the way a spark catches in dry firewood. An hour ago, I thought an urban rich man system was the most useless object ever handed to a man in a cultivation world. The use is enormous, and the joke is entirely on me. I stand and shove the door open. The mountain breeze comes at me smelling of grass and wet wood, spiritual peaks standing out of the mist with faint sword light threading between the clouds. A few dead leaves skid in circles along the bluestone path. I take one good breath of the cold and start running the winding mountain road, because the daily task says 6 li and the daily task is now my employer. I have not gone far when a group of disciples comes up the path, back from the market with medicinal pills, and they stop dead at the sight of a man running. The consensus arrives at a low volume and reaches me anyway. Nobody sane runs in the last months before an assessment, one of them says, and another recognizes me and supplies the rest. I tested medium grade at the entrance, so with the window closing I ought to be terrified instead of jogging. A third concludes helpfully that my comprehension ability must be short too, and that I have given up. They agree they have no time to waste on me either, and hurry off to cultivate. I finish 6 li of mountain road in no time at all. When I stop, my breathing is level and there is no sweat on my forehead. An exercise task built for an ordinary man in a city is not a warm-up for a chi refining cultivator. I am about to turn back when a familiar voice calls my name and asks what I am doing. Running out here. Wang Rim is standing a little way off looking startled. Thin as a pole, his robes shoving around him like a bamboo stalk bent over. He is out of the Wang family of the Wool Kingdom, and 2 disciples out of Wool Kingdom families naturally drift together inside a sect this size. I tell him easily that I got tired of sitting and came out to move my legs. He nods, then remembers whatever he actually stopped me for. He leans in and asks in a lower voice how my cultivation has been going, and whether I have touched the bottleneck yet. I tell him not yet. He lets out a long breath, and the relief crosses his face fast enough that he probably thinks I missed it. Then his eyebrows go up, and he tells me quietly that his family has just sent up a whole bottle of chi nourishing pills. With those, he should break through before the assessment closes, he says it, and his eyes keep flicking to my face while he says it. I keep my expression where it is, and congratulate him, and I mean it. Disappointment goes to the back of Wang Rim's eyes like a fish under ice. He wanted envy, and he had every reason to expect it, because he knows what the Ryuk family's finances look like. No resources, a medium-grade root, a few months left, and the ending writes itself. From there, a utility disciple and an official disciple only walk further apart every year. He puts away the closeness he brought out, lets the smile thin, tells me to work hard too, and turns for his own quarters. I watch him go and find myself close to laughing. At my current income, I could buy 2 bottles of chi nourishing pills a month and still eat well. Back in my room, I pull the wooden door shut on its creaking hinge, sit down cross-legged and submit the task. My physique goes from 1.9 to 2. A warm current comes up out of somewhere deep and spreads between my muscles and bones and organs without any warning. I can feel the strength arriving. It is not absurd and it is nothing small either. More like several days of hard body tempering handed over in one instant. This is physical body strength, and the physique number is reaching directly into my flesh and rebuilding it. Nobody in the cultivation world needs to be told how brutal the road of a body cultivator is. It devours resources, and the process itself is purgatory. bones shattered and reset, flesh steamed over and over in medicinal liquid. Plenty of cultivators start down that road with their teeth set and quit halfway, and nobody blames them. Meanwhile, I run 6 li a day. No pain, no risk, no medicinal vats. A body cultivator who learned about this would want to fight me on principle. Then a thought lands and my gaze snaps to another line on the panel. Intelligence. What if intelligence is tied to comprehension ability, the single factor deciding whether a cultivator can penetrate a profound technique, and one moves in leaps, while the other never finds the doorway? In some respects, it matters more than a spiritual root does. I do not dare finish the thought, because I will not be able to sit still. That leaves charm, and here I have nothing. Cultivators are bathed in spiritual chi day and night, and come out with fine skin as standard, so the ceiling should already be high. Still, physique turned into real strength, so whatever charm does is probably not nothing. I am halfway through congratulating myself when I stop and go over the panel again and rub my eyes to be sure. There is no morality. The system announced moral, intellectual, physical, and aesthetic development, then quietly declined to track the first one. Cultivation does not require morality, apparently. I decide not to argue with the machine that is paying me. I take a book out of my storage pouch. The pages have yellowed and the corners have started to curl, and 3 large characters sit across the cover in iron-drawn, silver-hooked calligraphy. It is the heavy sword art, one of the introductory cultivation techniques of the Jiamhong sword sect, yellow rank, high grade. Outside these walls, a copy of it would draw Foundation Establishment loose cultivators into fighting each other to the death. And here it is what the lowest disciples are handed on their first day. I open it and get ink and old paper in my nose, and let my eyes sink into the lines. Reading tasks start. I have read the heavy sword art every day for 4 years, and can recite the mantras with my eyes closed, and none of that has ever been the problem. Knowing something by heart and comprehending it are 2 different animals. The mantras are refined down to the bone, every word folded over layers of change, and it still feels like looking at distant mountains through thin mist. The outlines are there, and the details never resolve. So I sit with my brows pulled together and my fingers tapping my knee, and my whole mind goes down into that difficult little world. Outside the window, the shadows crawl from the foot of the bed to the base of the wall, and I notice none of it. When my neck finally aches enough to make me look up, more than an hour has gone. The reading task on the panel in my sea of consciousness has lit up with a completion mark, and I submit it before I can talk myself into savoring the moment. Intelligence goes from 1 to 1.1. A strange cool sensation surfaces from the depths of my mind, like a fine soft mist settling over my whole head, and it lasts a few breaths before withdrawing. Then I notice the difference, and it is not subtle. My thinking feels rinsed in mountain spring water. The bottlenecks that ate 4 years of effort and gave nothing back are coming apart and reconnecting on their own behind my eyes, and several knots I have never picked loose simply fall open. Raising intelligence really did raise comprehension ability with it. If I keep clearing the daily tasks, this number climbs by 0.1 a day, and a year of that is more than 30 points. The relationship between the points and the comprehension they buy is clearly not a straight line either. A single 0.1 caused a change of kind rather than degree, and I cannot imagine what hundreds of points would feel like. I breathe out and force myself down to the last daily task, which asks me to rest for 4 hours. I say it out loud and immediately start wondering whether cultivation counts as resting. The path of cultivation nourishes essence, energy, and spirit by its nature, so in strict terms it is a form of self-restoration, and I am prepared to defend that position. I close my eyes, take the meditative posture with my newly clear head, and start circulating the thin spiritual chi in my body. Once I am under, time stops mattering. When I open my eyes, the room has gone dim and yellow. The spiritual chi inside me has grown a fraction thicker, and instead of being tired, I feel full and awake. More than 4 hours have gone by. The panel says the rest task is flipped to completed, and I smile like a man who has beaten a clerk on a technicality. For a cultivator, cultivation is circulating the spiritual chi of heaven and earth to temper the body and feed the spirit, prolonging life and settling the foundation. If the whole purpose of rest is to let body and spirit come back better, then this is simply rest with ambition. Extremely reasonable. I submit it. Charm goes from 0.9 to 1, and this one is not immediate the way the others were. I feel a faint warmth move through me, like an invisible soft light brushing my skin, and then nothing else. I frown, get up, and angle the palm-sized bronze mirror into the dull yellow light from the window. The brows are the same and the contours have not shifted, and yet the man in the mirror is somehow more pleasing to look at. It is an overall improvement in coordination, the skin a little finer. I touch my own face and mutter that a charm stat apparently does make a person better looking. My face was already handsome enough, and in a world this dangerous a face does not fill a bowl. Strength is the hard currency and always was. All 3 daily tasks are done, and the reward for the 4th is lying there waiting. 50 points of general experience. I pour all 50 straight into the spiritual root column, and it moves to 50 of 1,000. 1,000 points takes a medium grade route to high grade. At 50 a day, that is 20 days. And once a high grade route is formed, every hour of cultivation returns twice what it did. Before the assessment closes, I will put my shoulder through that bottleneck and walk into mid-stage chi refining. The moment the experience is allocated, my stomach announces that it is completely empty. A chi refining cultivator is nowhere near the realm of living on wind and dew, and a long stretch of hard sitting burns real energy. I head for the canteen in the middle of the disciple quarters, a plain 2-story wooden pavilion, and it is full of people. With the assessment date closing in, there is an urgency in the air nobody names out loud. Most of the disciples going past are moving fast, some muttering about where their cultivation has stalled. Even for eating, everybody is trying to save the minutes. The moment I am inside, the smell of food comes at me in a wave, and my appetite wakes up. My feet take me toward the ordinary meal windows where the queue is doing what it always does. Then my eyes catch on a window across the hall and I stop. That is the spirit food window, and where the ordinary side has a line running back on itself, that counter has 2 youths in front of it. They are hunched close to the opening, talking low and urgently to the utility disciple inside, their fingers working at the storage pouches on their belts. Spirit food is cooked out of expensive ingredients that carry spiritual chi, spirit rice, flesh from the essential parts of a monster beast, grated spirit medicine, all of it handled by spirit chefs. Different dishes carry different auxiliary effects in the same way medicinal pills do. The effect is milder than a pill's, and in exchange it leaves no medicinal toxin banking up in your body. Wealthy cultivators treat it as an ordinary luxury to prop up their cultivation. In my first 2 years, there was a proper queue at that window, back when this batch still had disciples with real family money. By the 3rd year, most of the rich and the gifted had been admitted to the outer sect, and the window went quiet. Now, in the final year, a few people are gritting their teeth and lining up again, throwing their last capital at the last chance. The old version of me would not have looked twice, for the unglamorous reason that I had no money. I glance at the panel, where my wealth now reads 10 spirit stones, and decide that a man with a god-tier tycoon system installed may splurge a little. Back home, I was a genuine glutton and never once cheap about what went in my mouth. Here I have been dirt poor from the day I arrived, and that was the entire argument. Now there is some confidence in my pocket, and I intend to find out what it tastes like. I change direction and walk over. As I get close, I can hear the youth in blue pleading in a low, humbled voice, asking whether it really cannot come down a little. Behind the counter stands a stout utility disciple with a square face and a wide mouth, arms folded, and he answers with a scoff pushed through his nose. He asks whether the boy thinks this is a mortal market where you haggle. The canteen is a sect industry with clearly marked prices, he says, and if the boy cannot afford it, he can eat the ordinary meals. He lifts his chin at the long queue, then adds that spirit food is not here for poor wretches with nothing in their pockets. Both their faces run through green and white while their fists close. They are furious and they do not dare say so, and all they can do is glare. The stout man glares back with interest, a mocking half smile at the corner of his mouth. He came up through the entry-level tier himself, and has worked this window for more than 10 years. So one glance prices anyone in front of him. 2 boys this poor obviously know their aptitude gives them nothing, and they want to sell everything they own for one last throw. He curls his lip and gets one more in, telling them that for men so young they have grown no skills except a very thick skin. Watching the pair shake with anger they cannot spend, he feels a warm and unwholesome satisfaction. He never passed the assessment either, and he is not about to watch 2 pieces of trash leap the dragon's gate in front of him. He is still enjoying himself when somebody steps unhurriedly into the gap beside the 2 flushed youths. He turns his head on reflex, gets a look at who has arrived, and goes completely blank. The only thought surfacing in that blankness is that this one is extremely good looking. The young man stands tall and straight with clear bright features and some refined quality he cannot name, as though he carries his own soft light. Then the young man speaks in a perfectly calm voice, calls him senior brother, and says he would like to buy spirit food. At senior brother, the stout man jolts back into his body. The gloating melts off his face in a fraction of a second, like ice hitting a spring wind, and what replaces it is a radiant fawning enthusiasm. He protests that senior brother is far too generous with the address, and that he does not deserve it, then produces the menu and asks what he would care to have today. A dozen years at this window have made his judgment sharp, and that composure belongs to somebody who has the means. Only one thing snags as he hands the menu over. This mountain's quarters take 1 batch per session and are not cleared until the assessment ends, so no new arrivals should be walking in now. He wonders, briefly, whether the sect changed the rules this year. The utility disciple's face turns over faster than a page, and the cold thing sitting on it a moment ago might as well never have existed. The 2 youths beside me keep looking from him to me and back, doing arithmetic that will not come out. They are underperformers from this same batch, exactly as I am, and the treatment is not remotely the same. I have money in my pocket, which turns out to be a complete personality. I take the menu with both hands and keep my face calm. The way it works here is that the utility disciple pulls the dishes straight out of a storage pouch. No spirit chefs are attached to the entry-level canteen, so everything is cooked in advance by the outer sex spirit chefs, sealed into pouches by a special technique, and carried down for sale. The space inside a storage pouch is a strange thing where time seems to stop. Whatever a dish looked like going in is what comes back out, still holding the heat of the pot. I run my eyes down the menu. The early dishes are built on basic ingredients carrying spiritual chi, stir-fried spirit gonoderma, stir-fried spirit pork, braised spirit pork trotters, none of them precious enough to need whole stones. Toward the bottom, the ingredients start coming from monster beasts, and the prices jump to 2 or 3 spirit stones a plate. I tap a fingertip at the very end of the list and order 1 serving of the braised flame-horned wolf meat along with 1 serving of the spicy white jade bamboo shoots. The 2 youths gasp at the same moment, as if they have misheard something obscene. Those are the 2 most expensive dishes on the menu. 3 spirit stones each, 6 together, roughly half a month's stipend for an ordinary disciple. In their heads, that many stones become a dose of spirit-gathering powder and a real shot at the assessment, and instead a man is about to eat them. Spirit food is good, and its medicinal effect never matches a medicinal pill, so a large share of the price is simply paying for the taste. Spending that much on one meal sits outside anything they can imagine. The utility disciple pauses too, because he honestly did not expect the 2 signature dishes. Even when the noble family disciples were still here, the ones willing to order at that level were the minority. Then he lets out a long breath and congratulates himself, since he decided the instant he saw me that this one had confidence. His smile turns radiant and gets fawning around the edges. Senior brother clearly knows his food, he tells me, and both of those are the signature works of the outer sex spirit chef. He wipes a hand across the storage pouch. Light flickers along the windowsill. 2 steaming plates appear out of empty air, and the smell that comes off them detonates. The braised flame-horned wolf meat is rich and savory with a thread of flame spiritual chi riding on it. The spicy white jade bamboo shoots are crisp and sharp, and the freshness somehow carries the clean air of morning dew. Braided together, the 2 of them are close to indecent. The youths beside me are swallowing helplessly, and my own mouth is watering hard enough that 6 spirit stones already feels fair. I dig 6 glittering low-grade spirit stones out of my pouch and hand them over. He takes them fast, then produces a bowl of spirit rice, each grain clear as glass and giving off its own faint light. Any spirit food order over 5 spirit stones comes with a complimentary bowl, he explains. House rules, so the sect canteen runs a spending threshold promotion. I accept it without ceremony, because in 19 years this is the first thing about this world that has felt like home. The smell travels with me and takes over half the hall on the way to my seat. Heads come up along the tables, noses working, and the sound of people swallowing rises and falls like a pond full of frogs. Somebody demands to know who bought spirit food, and somebody else insists this is not the cheap tier and that a noble family disciple must have arrived. Then a hand points me out and the whole room turns. Every bowl of ordinary food in this canteen has just turned to wax. Among them are a few of the disciples who watched me run this morning, and their whispering reaches me in pieces. One cannot believe that is Ryukyong and asks since when I was rich. Another wonders whether my family background is secretly excellent. A third points out the flaw, which is that with money like that behind me, a medium-grade route should not have left me stuck for 4 years. They never find an answer that holds. Out at the entrance, Wang Rim comes in fast with excitement all over his face. The chi-nourishing pill has been everything he hoped. He swallowed one during cultivation, and the spiritual chi in his body picked up more than 3 times its usual flow, and the medicinal power is still running through his meridians. He only stopped because his body was hollow with hunger, and his plan is to shovel down a few mouthfuls and get back to it. Then he steps through the doorway and walks face first into the smell. His stomach clenches loudly enough for the nearest table to hear, and he scans the hall wondering how anything can smell like that. He follows the direction everyone is staring, and then stops moving entirely with his pupils shrinking. There is a young man at a table not far away, unhurried, working through 2 plates of spirit food. He rubs his eyes hard and checks again, because there is no world in which Ryuk Yang has the spirit stones for this. By the time he catches up with himself, his legs have already carried him halfway across the floor, so he covers the rest at speed. He arrives at my table, works out what the dishes are, and his eye twitches. He asks whether those are not rather expensive, and where I got the spirit stones. I am in the middle of eating, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. My chopsticks are extremely fast, and I am entirely submerged in the happiness of it. The medicinal effect really is weaker than a pill's, and my mouth is having the best day of its life. This mouth has been with me a long time and has never once been given anything, and now that the means exist, it is getting compensated. The only sadness is that 12 spirit stones a day will not cover eating like this at every meal. so I have set the schedule at one good meal every other day. I lift my head with a piece of tender wolf meat still going down, and find Wang Rim looking at me like a man watching a wall move. I swallow, let my mouth curl, and tell him somebody gave them to me. His face turns several colors in sequence, as if a spice rack has gone over. He asks whether somebody just gave me spirit stones, and whether I am not supposed to be spending those on medicinal pills. So I hit him again, gently, and tell him I have enough for medicinal pills as well. He freezes solid where he stands. This morning he stood on a mountain path and told me with great care about his whole bottle of chi-nourishing pills. Now the person he told is not short of pill money and is also burning stones on spirit food at this tier. Whatever he had glued together in his chest comes apart again. He is clearly trying to work out what benefactor I met, and he also understands that asking will get him nothing. His mouth twitches before he drags out a radiant smile uglier than crying. He tells me to eat slowly, says he is going to go eat too, and walks off with his steps unsteady and his soul apparently out ahead of him. Before long, both plates are clean, and there's not a single grain of spirit rice left. I lean back, rub a stomach that is now slightly convex, and let out a long, contented breath. Then a light screen opens in front of my eyes with no warning. The system informs me that the host has enjoyed delicious food and is in a pleasant mood, and rewards me 300 low-grade spirit stones and 1 low-grade rebate card. My pupils shrink and I go completely still, and then the joy comes up through me in waves. There's a reward for enjoying food. I am being paid to eat well. I take a moment to ask whether this is really acceptable, then remember that I am the one doing the eating and the taking. I spent 6 spirit stones and the system handed me back 300, a net profit of 294. That single sitting earned nearly a month of the system's fixed income, and I did it by chewing. Once the excitement is down, I look at the rebate card. It explains itself in the calm tone of a piece of consumer finance that has no idea what world it landed in. I may designate a single purchase and I will receive a random rebate worth 1 to 5 times what I spent. I feel my pupils tighten all over again. A multiplied rebate on my own spending. I am holding 300 low-grade spirit stones, and if the multiplier comes up at 5, that is 1,500 in my hand. On a sect monthly stipend I would have to save for more than a decade, without eating or drinking, to see that number once. Obviously the bigger the purchase, the higher the ceiling, and obviously I would love to wait. But I am still laying groundwork, and medicinal pills, cultivation techniques, and magic artifacts all come out of the same pouch. Since the stones will be spent either way, they may as well be spent while a card is watching. On top of that, every purchase pushes Tycoon's confidence toward its next rank, so spending early raises my daily income. I barely hesitate before deciding to go down to the sect marketplace tomorrow and use the thing. I get my mind level and stand, and under a whole canteen's worth of complicated looks, I stroll out. 2 portions of spirit food have left the spiritual chi in my meridians moving like a low flame. If I do not go back and refine it immediately, it goes to waste. Being rich has responsibilities. The Jiamhong Sword Sect trading marketplace fills a wide natural valley on the outer skirts of the Zhongyang mountain range, a formal trading ground run directly by the sect. Mist drifts through it while rows of pavilions and shops stand along the terrain in good order, and the noise is enormous. There are sect-operated medicinal pill pavilions, magic artifact shops, and talisman halls, and between them the temporary stalls that disciples and loose cultivators set out. Loose cultivators, noble family disciples, and small sect disciples thread through each other, while spiritual light flickers over the stalls. The trip from the outer sect residence takes a little over an hour, and I am only arriving in the afternoon because I finished all 3 daily tasks first. My charm has reached 1.1, and the effect is not imaginary. There is something clear about the brows and eyes now, and walking through the crowd I feel like unpolished jade somebody rinsed in a spring. The moment I step through the entrance, I notice the looks coming over, and the overwhelming majority belong to female cultivators. Some of them do not bother hiding the admiration. Back home, a face like this would have been unfair. Before I transmigrated, I had a friend that handsome, with a different person beside his pillow every day, and I envied him more than once. I am walking toward the sect-run medicinal pill shop with my mind pleasantly elsewhere, when the system screen pops up unannounced. It reports that it has detected a 9-point beauty. It asks how a god-tier tycoon can possibly go without a beautiful companion, and offers an extra reward if I add the beauty's contact information. I stop where I am. The talk about beauties and companions goes past me without landing, and my eyes catch on the last 2 words and stay there. I have now seen what this urban rich man system considers a reasonable payout, so an extra reward from it is unlikely to be small. And a god-tier tycoon surrounded by beauties does fit the character sheet. My gaze goes around and locks onto a female cultivator setting up a stall a short way off. She wears the attire of an outer sect disciple and sits quietly behind her goods. She has a small oval face, brows like distant mountains, eyes like autumn water, and skin so fair it throws light back. She is genuinely beautiful. A 9 by the standard of the city I came out of is the tier a top actress lives at, and 10 is presumably where a human being runs out of room. Cultivators of the immortal realm have their meridians and marrow cleansed until the skin turns translucent, so I suspect scores above 10 exist. I do not know her, and I recognize the uniform at a glance. That is the attire of an official outer sect disciple of the Geum-hong sword sect, which nobody puts on before passing the entry examination. By the reckoning of this place, I have to call her senior sister. The system has never shown a punishment mechanism, so if I fail to get to know her, nothing happens to me. I am simply curious about that extra reward. Besides, what this senior sister has laid out happens to be medicinal pills, and I came here to buy medicine. There are already 2 young male cultivators standing over her, circling the stall and talking at her from both sides, with the eagerness practically running down their chins. Her expression never changes. She gives them the occasional small nod or a flat, polite word, and a thin line of helplessness sits between her brows. She is quiet and gentle to a degree neither of them has noticed is a wall. As I stop at the stall, one of them is proposing that he watch it for junior sister Lim so she can go back and cultivate. Her talent is too good to waste on selling things, he says. Her voice when she answers is soft and warm like a stream in spring, with a deliberate cool set into it. She thanks the senior brother for his kindness, says she can manage, and suggests both senior brothers go back and cultivate instead of delaying their own practice. The other one cuts in with the tone of a man performing bravery. There are loose cultivators coming and going through this marketplace, he says, and the 2 of them are standing guard so nobody short of eyesight bumps into her. She lets out a sigh so small it barely counts. This is the sect marketplace, she points out. Law enforcement senior brothers patrol it, and nobody would dare bump into a sect disciple here. Inside, Lim Young is thoroughly sick of this. She was careful. She picked a quiet hour deliberately, and she still got stuck to on the road by 2 pieces of chewing gum who will not peel off no matter what she says. They stand there like a pair of door gods. She gives up talking and simply sits. Then a clear, gentle voice comes from the front of the stall, asking the senior sister whether she sells medicinal pills for cultivation. All 3 of them stall. The young man standing there has handsome brows and eyes, and a slender build, and something ethereal about him that refuses to be named. There is a faint smile at the corner of his mouth, mild enough that people relax without deciding to. Lim Young's heart skips once for no reason she is willing to accept, and the thought that goes through her is that this junior brother has a remarkably fine face. The 2 youths feel their hearts drop and their expressions change on the spot. Neither can work out how a brat this young got a face like that, and privately both consider it excessive. They steal a look at Lim Young, find her expression perfectly calm, and let out matching breaths of relief. Junior sister Lim is clearly not the kind of shallow woman who judges by looks. Their chests come back out, because so what if he is good looking? He is an entry-level disciple who has not passed the outer sect examination, nowhere near official disciples like themselves. One of them adopts a leisurely, condescending air. So this would be a junior brother still inside the assessment period, he observes, and naturally junior sister Lim has medicinal pills. And the question is whether there is money in his hand. The other picks it up with contempt, supposing I plan to buy them one at a time, and adding that junior sister Lim does not run that kind of small business. There is truth under the insult. Low-rank cultivators short on funds do find a whole bottle a serious expense, and plenty of them cheerfully buy singles. Lim Young has to cultivate and perform alchemy every day, and she is always sold by the bottle. Which is why, the moment they finish, the quiet senior sister smiles and says something none of us expected. She tells me not to listen to the nonsense of these 2 senior brothers. A junior brother still in the assessment period cannot have much spirit stone on hand, she says. And since we all belong to the same sect, selling a few pieces individually is no trouble. The smiles on the 2 young men freeze where they are. They turn their heads to look at her with their faces full of confusion, because junior sister Lim was very clearly not like this the last time they bought pills from her. I look at her with some surprise myself. Under my eyes, her gaze slides off to the side and her lashes flutter, which I do not notice. I am busy telling her with a smile that senior sister is joking, that junior brother still has some spirit stones on hand, and that I plan to buy by the bottle. I came here specifically to use a rebate card. Of course I have to spend as many spirit stones as the day will let me. Buying single pills would defeat the entire purpose of my existence today. Hearing that, Lim Young decides privately that her reaction a moment ago was somewhat much. A fair number of entry-level disciples come out of aristocratic families, and from this junior brother's bearing his background is probably not simple. Good looks and money behind him as well. She bites her lip, feels her ears warm, and cuts that line of thinking off before it goes anywhere. Composing herself, she introduces her stock in a soft voice. She mostly carries chi nourishing pills and chi condensing pills. Her alchemy is passable, and the quality of both is quite good. I nod, let my eyes travel over the few porcelain bottles, and ask whether I might see the chi-nourishing pills first. A chi-nourishing pill is the superior of the two and priced accordingly, and I have money now. She agrees at once, lifts a small white porcelain bottle, flicks the stopper out with a fingertip, and tips a pale pill into her palm. It is pale white all the way through like jade, and up close it carries a faint medicinal fragrance. The color alone tells me she was not overselling. A badly made pill runs gray or black, with pill toxins banked up in it and the effect muddied, and only a clean pill comes out this clear. The true top-grade spirit pills are rarer still, and generally never reach a market. Their effects are enormous, and their toxins almost nothing, so an alchemist either keeps them or sends them to auction for a price ordinary disciples only read about. I look up, tell her the quality really is good, and ask what a bottle costs. She thinks for a moment and answers gently. The market price for a high-quality chi-nourishing pill is 15 low-grade spirit stones. A bottle holds 10, and the total would be 150. Then she adds that a junior brother still in the assessment period has many places to spend spirit stones, so the price for me is 145. Beside her, the two young men twitch in unison and their eyes go a color I would describe as green. Every time they have come to buy pills, they have paid market price like honest men, and she has just handed a discount to somebody she met 1 minute ago. I did not expect this senior sister to be that kind, and I run the numbers fast. I am carrying 312 spirit stones in total, 300 of which the system paid me for enjoying a meal yesterday. The remaining 12 arrived hour by hour out of Tycoon's confidence. That is 2 bottles with change. So I smile and thank her, and tell her I want 2 bottles plus 1 more pill separately, 305 spirit stones in all, and ask whether that works. The two young men, whose mental states were already in pieces, hear the number and look up together with the expressions of men who have swallowed a fly. The kid can produce 300 spirit stones at once for medicinal pills. Which great aristocratic family is he even from? Lim Young is briefly startled too, then her brows and eyes curve into a genuinely beautiful smile as she says it is no problem. She takes 2 more bottles out of her storage pouch, picks 1 loose pill to go with them, and hands the lot over. I take the pills and pour the spirit stones onto the stall in a bright clatter, the spiritual chi spilling off them enough to dazzle everyone standing there. The transaction is done. She puts the stones away, and inside her sleeve her slender white fingers quietly twist the corner of her clothes. She hesitates, her gaze drifting, and then she looks up and asks in a voice that is testing the water, "Will junior brother be buying medicinal pills again, and why do we not add a sect communication mark so that I can come straight to her next time?" Then she adds quickly that junior brother should not misunderstand, and that she only wants to save the hours of sitting at a stall, so she can focus on cultivating. The faces of the two young men beside her crack straight down the middle. They stare at her like men struck by lightning, mouths open, entirely unable to produce speech. Junior sister Lim just asked for contact information on her own initiative, and junior sister Lim is distant to everybody. I am also caught off guard, since I was standing there trying to work out how to ask a senior sister for her contact mark without sounding like a lunatic. There is obviously no refusing this. Even setting aside the extra reward waiting on my panel, when a beautiful senior sister takes the initiative, no is not a word available to me. I break into a bright smile and tell her I have been planning to ask senior sister how to reach her so I could keep coming back for pills. It seems we understand each other perfectly. Her ears go red at that. She turns the phrase over and privately wonders whether junior brother was not being a little direct. The moment it leaves my mouth, I hear it too. The immortal realm is far more open than any mortal dynasty, and it still has no room for that line at that speed. What I said sits about 1 word short of flirting. I can feel the 2 senior brothers' stares going into me like knives, and without the law enforcement patrols, I would already be having a worse afternoon. I cough, take out my sect token and give it a shake and tell her my name is Ryuk Yang before asking for hers. She collects herself as well, presses her heartbeat back down, produces her own token and says with her eyes lowered that her name is Lim Young. A sect token carries a personal mark, and through its transmission, formation 2 people can trade marks. Afterward, they can send voice transmissions to each other at any time inside a certain range. Once the exchange is finished, I put my token away, smile and tell senior sister Lim that junior brother has other things to see to and will take his leave. She grips the token tight in her hand, nods gently, and answers with 1 soft syllable. I turn and walk into the depths of the market with my sleeves drifting behind me. Lim Young stays where she is, watching the space where I stop being visible. Her mouth is curved without her noticing, and she feels lighter than she can account for. Then a young man's unsteady voice arrives beside her and ruins it. She should be careful of that kid, he warns, since anyone with a greasy, pretty face like that is obviously not a good person. The other jumps in with his tone gone sour, agreeing, saying junior sister is inexperienced in the world and should not let a glib-tongued bastard deceive her. Her brows draw together and the smile goes out of her face. She turns her head with a displeasure she almost never lets anybody see. She asks whether speaking ill of a fellow disciple behind his back is the mark of a good person. Both of them choke on it, and seeing junior sister Lim actually angry frightens them. One laughs dryly and tries to smooth it over, claiming he was joking and suggesting she only wanted a long-term customer. The other nods along hard enough to loosen something, agreeing that it is merely a customer buying medicinal pills, and asking whether junior sister could possibly have taken a liking to that kid. Lim Young looks at their forced smiles, thinks about how long these two have been pestering her, and has an idea. She withdraws her gaze and says softly that she actually thinks junior brother Ryuk is quite good, and that he is the type she likes. If those words make them retreat, that is the most productive sentence of her month. Their expressions freeze on their faces as though somebody poured cold water over them, and the color drains out of both. For a moment the air around the stall is eerily quiet. Then one of them grinds his teeth and says he does not believe it, in a tone landing somewhere between a curse and self-hypnosis. This time it is Lim Young's turn to say nothing. Walking deeper into the market, I cannot stop myself glancing at the panel. The special reward notice is flickering quietly, already available to claim, and my fingers itch. Then I think about where I am standing, with people packed shoulder to shoulder, and decide it can wait until I get back. If claiming it causes a commotion out here, cleaning that up would be somebody's whole afternoon, probably mine. So I shift my attention to the system inventory and take a breath. It is time to witness a miracle. I move my mind without hesitating and use the low-grade rebate card. The screen tells me the designated purchase has registered and that the random reward multiplier has come up at 4. The host may congratulate himself on 2,220 low-grade spirit stones. My pupils pull tight and my breathing goes wrong. I am standing in a busy street with my heart hitting my ribs hard enough to hear. 4 times. Not the 5 at the top of the range, but 4 times is a rate of return that ought to be illegal in any world with rules. I spent 305 spirit stones a few minutes ago, and the card has just thrown 2,220 back at me. I make myself breathe. Tycoon's confidence brings in 360 stones a month, so what just landed is several months of existing. There are senior brothers and senior sisters here at late-stage chi refining, some of them at the peak, who could not put that many spirit stones on a table at once. I got it for no rebate. My fists close and my mouth will not stay flat, because for the first time since I arrived in this world, my options have stopped being a short list. There is more. Tycoon's confidence is showing is upgradable, since that purchase blew past the 100-stone threshold without noticing it was there. I tell it to upgrade, and the light on the panel flickers once as the text rewrites itself. Level 2 pays 2 low-grade spirit stones every hour. Money is the backbone of a god-tier tycoon, and the next level costs 500 low-grade spirit stones of consumption. The hourly rate has doubled outright. Its whole strength is that it never stops, and I have over 1,000 stones that could push it further. So I keep spending. 21 chi nourishing pills sit quietly in the storage couch at my waist, which is more than enough medicine for a good while, so the next purchase has to be something else. I look up and take in the street, shops standing shoulder to shoulder with their signs glowing warm under black-tiled eaves. There are monster beast material shops, magic artifact pavilions, formation plate workshops, and talisman halls. My eyes stop at the door of the magic artifact pavilion and then pull back. Sect rules say any disciple who passes the assessment is rewarded with 1 high-grade magic artifact, and for a cultivator at Chi Refining that carries you to the peak without falling behind. I also cultivate almost entirely inside the sect, where opportunities to swing anything at anybody are thin. Talismans are different. A talisman keeps you alive in the moment everything goes wrong, and carrying enough of them lets you bury an opponent under paper, stacking combat power far past what your cultivation should allow. For somebody as weak as I am, that beats a magic artifact I would spend the year admiring. I stop dithering and walk into the sect-operated talisman shop. The inside is wider and brighter than the front suggests. Vermilion wooden grids run along all 4 walls with talisman scrolls displayed by category, and under each one hangs a small plaque giving the name, the grade, and the function in neat calligraphy. The whole place is soaked in the heavy smell of cinnabar threaded through with spiritual ink, and standing in it settles my mind without asking permission. There are only 2 customers, both in outer sect uniforms and both wearing the air of it, each trailed by a utility disciple murmuring explanations. 3 more utility disciples are gathered on the other side, talking about nothing. All 3 look up when I come in. Their eyes land on my entry-level uniform, and the man and the woman among them withdraw without any expression. An entry-level disciple cannot be carrying enough to justify walking across a room. The third is an elderly utility disciple, and his cloudy eyes light up instead. He piles a kind, unforced smile onto his face and hurries over. His voice carries the warmth of long practice as he asks whether the senior brother is looking to buy talismans. I nod and ask him to introduce them. Privately, the old man approves, From the moment I walked in, I have been calm and looking straight at things instead of around them, which is nothing like the loose cultivators who edge in half-crouched. That kind of confidence cannot be faked. He runs the numbers and decides my storage pouch must hold at least 1 or 200 low-grade spirit stones. If I spend 100, his commission comes to 1 low-grade spirit stone, which is serious income for a utility disciple. He leads me deeper in and talks as he walks. The talismans here are all hand-drawn by the senior brothers and senior sisters of Talisman Peak, he says, and the basic first-tier stock is on this floor. Then he starts to mention second tier, and I cut the sentence off and tell him I will buy first tier. Second-tier talismans are pitched at Foundation Establishment power, and a small cultivator at Chi Refining cannot activate one without a struggle. A man takes 1 step at a time and 1 mouthful at a time. The old man agrees crisply, then asks what my requirements are and what my budget is, with a glint in those cloudy eyes. My voice stays perfectly level, as though I am discussing rice. I tell him I want all 3, attack and defense and speed, and that 1,000 low-grade spirit stones seems a reasonable place to start the budget. The entire shop stops as if somebody pressed a hand down on it. The 2 outer sect disciples freeze over the talismans they were examining, and turn their heads together with astonishment on both faces. Their attending utility disciples go rigid with their mouths open, wearing the expressions of men who have seen something dead walk. The man and the woman in the corner snap their heads up and stare at me with their faces gone blank. 1,000 low-grade spirit stones. The female utility disciple curls her lip and mutters that somebody here is a braggart. From where she is standing, that is a reasonable call. Nobody buys that many first-tier talismans at once, because talismans are consumables you keep as trump cards rather than conventional combat power. 1,000 low-grade spirit stones would buy a decent medium-grade magic artifact, or a lower-quality high-grade one on a lucky day. Even the old utility disciple needs several breaths to come back. He has seen a customer spend 1,000 at once on first-tier talismans exactly twice, and both were official outer sect disciples. An entry-level disciple doing it is not a thing his memory contains, and what he is really asking is what kind of background I come from. He takes a deep breath, pushes the shock down, and carefully confirms whether senior brother truly intends to buy 1,000 low-grade spirit stones of talismans. I confirm that I do, and I add that I want high-quality, top-grade if he has it. His mouth twitches and he laughs a dry little laugh. Top-grade talismans are genuinely rare, he explains, and the highest grade this shop carries is high-grade. That tracks. Top-grade talismans are like top-grade medicinal pills, and the high-grade stock circulating through sex shops is already considered good goods. I tell him high-grade will do. He brightens and starts reciting, clearly from memory. High-grade attack talismans run 30 to 40 low-grade spirit stones each, and hit with the force of a full-strength strike from a late-stage Chi refining cultivator. High-grade defensive talismans cost far more, around 60 to 70 each, and in exchange they let you tank a full-force strike from a peak Chi refining cultivator head-on. High-grade speed talismans price out about the same as the defensive ones. Then he asks whether he should take me to the finished products, and I follow him around the room while he shows me one after another. The high-grade fireball talisman goes for 35, and the paper is warm to the touch with flame runes flickering across it. The high-grade ice spike talisman is 40, and the cold reaches my fingers before I do. The high-grade lightness talisman is 65 and makes your movement as light as wind. The high-grade protective talisman is the dear one at 70 apiece. He knows the origin, the power, and the handling of every talisman in the place. I listen and total things up as I go, and my mind is made up before the tour ends. I ask him for 4 of the high-grade protected talismans, and 4 of the lightness talismans. His abacus clatters, and those 2 lines alone come to 540 low-grade spirit stones. After that, I take 2 or 3 of each of the 5 elements attack talismans, and add 2 chi concealing talismans on top. A high-grade chi concealing talisman suppresses your own aura until no cultivator below Foundation Establishment can locate you, which is sometimes worth more than any blade. His fingers fly and the beads rattle, and when he reports the total, his voice is shaking. 1,020 low-grade spirit stones. The shop goes quiet enough to hear a pin land on stone. The female utility disciple, who was so certain I was bluffing, has her eyes wide and her lips moving with nothing coming out. The 2 outer sect disciples put their talismans down some time ago and are simply staring, and I can read the thought going around in both heads. Some Golden Core clan descendant has come down here to experience the lives of ordinary people, and I would think so too if I were them. My face does not move. I take the spirit stones out of my storage pouch and pile them onto the counter, and the sound of them knocking together is crisp and carries beautifully in a silent room. Then I pack away a thick stack of talismans and feel the spiritual power moving under the paper, and my mouth curls. With this much in my pouch, a late-stage Chi refining cultivator coming at me would be worth attempting to kill. And failing that, leaving becomes a decision rather than a hope. Only when the whole stack disappears does the old utility disciple come back to himself. He bends forward with the wrinkles bunching on his face like a chrysanthemum, and asks whether there is anything else senior brother needs. I shake my head and tell him that if anything comes up, I will come again. I have just moved over 1,000 low-grade spirit stones across a counter, and I am down to barely 200, and I have plans for those, which are meals. Of all the things in this world, eating is the most important. Spirit food is gentle and slow, and does not fight with a pill. So spirit food every day with chi-nourishing pills on top takes my cultivation somewhere ridiculous. The old man is not remotely disappointed, since the commission on this one sale already matches a long stretch of grinding work. He bows several times with his face full of smiles. If senior brother comes back, he should look for him, he says. And his name is Lee Sam. I nod slightly and walk out of the talisman shop under a room full of numb and complicated stares. Once I am gone, the air in the shop starts moving again. The two outer sect disciples break the silence first, muttering about what exactly that junior brother's background is. Neither has ever seen me, so they settle on a newly admitted disciple, and one says flatly that nobody drops over 1,000 spirit stones on first-tier talismans without a golden core clan behind him. The Jiamhong Sword Sect is a top-tier power in Jin Province, with an Ascent Soul Old Ancestor presiding, not level with the Immortal Holy Lands, but enough to look down across the region. Golden Core clans are powerful in their own right and still send their direct descendants here for training every year. So what those two believe they have watched is a favored child of heaven amusing himself. They trade a glance and decide to find out more once they are back, since building a relationship during the assessment period is all upside. In the corner, the two utility disciples who could not be bothered to cross the floor for me are watching Lee Sam grin from ear to ear, and their guts are turning green. The commission at a talisman shop is 1%. Run through their hands, that sale would have paid over 10 whole low-grade spirit stones, which is 2 months of scraping commissions the hard way. They passed on it because of the color of my uniform, and both look like they would enjoy slapping themselves. Out on the street, I decide against wandering further. I bought what I came for, and the only thing that matters now is going back and cultivating. Time is short, and breaking through to mid-stage chi refining is the point of every stone I have spent. I walk back the way I came, and when I pass the place where Lim Yong had her stall, the ground is bare. She is packed up, probably sold out and gone back to cultivate. Then something occurs to me. My combat power is fine now, buried under paper, and there is one thing I am still missing, which is a detoxifying medicinal pill. For a cultivator, an open spear is easy enough to dodge, and a hidden arrow is what kills you. If somebody ever poisons me, no amount of talismans is going to help. So I take out my sect token while I walk. The token of an entry-level disciple is plain clean white with the sword emblem of the Jiamhong Sword Sect cut into the face, and a faint shimmer of spiritual chi moving through the lines. I feed a thread of spiritual chi in and send a voice transmission asking Senior Sister Lim whether she carries anything for poison. The reply comes back gently before I have gone far. She has 3 kinds: heart-clearing pills, detoxification pills, and 100 herb pills, and the 100 herb pill is the strongest and will neutralize any poison below peak chi refining. I take the 100 herb pill and ask the price. The market rate is 80 low-grade spirit stones, she says, and for me she will make it 75. I ask her for 2 of them, explaining that I do not go out much and that a pair will outlast anything likely to happen to me. She says that is no problem, mentions that she has already returned to the sect, and asks which entry-level disciple residence I belong to. I tell her I need over an hour to get back, and that I am at the 4th entry-level disciple residence. The Jiamhong Sword Sect keeps 5 entry-level disciple residences spread across 5 different peaks. Each year, when the gates open for new disciples, the intake is assigned around them in turn. She replies that she will come over and wait for me. I put the token away and let my eyes drop back to the panel, where Tycoon's confidence is once again showing as upgradable. 1,020 spirit stones went across that counter. I do not say anything out loud this time. I simply move my mind and upgrade it. Level 3 pays 4 low-grade spirit stones every hour. Money is the basis of becoming a god-tier tycoon. The system notes, and the next level will cost 2,000 low-grade spirit stones. It has doubled again. 4 an hour across 12 hours is 48 a day, 1,440 in a month, and over 17,000 low-grade spirit stones in a year. At that income, high-grade magic artifacts stop being aspirational, and walking into an auction house to chance my luck on a lower-quality top-tier artifact stops being a joke. The next threshold is 2,000, which on my present income is a little over a month of saving, and I am in no hurry. I could swallow 1 chi-nourishing pill and throw the next one over the cliff for entertainment. Dusk. The sunset burns along the edge of the sea of clouds, and its golden red braid into the golden chi over the Jiamhong Sword Sect's mountain gates, until the whole range looks gilded. At the 4th entry-level disciple residence, doors are opening as disciples drift toward the canteen in 2s and 3s. Then somebody's footsteps stumble and stop. By the stone steps beside the mountain path stands a young girl in the clothes of an outer sect disciple, slender, quiet, gentle. The breeze moves her sleeves and her dark hair, and she looks like a small white flower swaying on its own. A good number of entry-level disciples look twice, and the whispering starts up amazed and confused, nobody able to explain what an outer sect senior sister is doing in their residence. While they are still guessing, the girl who has been standing so quietly lights up. A shallow smile opens on her mouth, and her whole bearing comes alive at once, and she takes a few steps toward the end of the mountain path. Everyone follows where she is looking and sees a young man climbing the winding path with the last of the sun throwing his shadow out long behind him. She says softly that junior brother Ryuk is back. Several of the disciples get a clear look at my face and their eyes go wide together, and one of them hisses out loud that it is me. Another remembers exactly who I am, which is the man who ate spirit food in the canteen last night, and says the smell nearly made him cry into his own rice. Then the real question goes around, which is whether this beautiful senior sister came here for that man. The answer produces a wave of disbelief and undisguised envy. I take the last few steps quickly and give Lim Yong an apologetic smile saying she arrived fast and that I have kept her waiting. She shakes her head gently and tells me she has not been waiting long, and her tone is light with something genuinely pleased under it. I glance around at the stairs now pointed at us and keep my expression ordinary. Then I suggest that senior sister Lim come with me to my residence, since this is not a convenient place to talk. She thinks nothing of it and nods, and we walk off side by side and vanish onto one of the small paths between the courtyards. Not far away, another door creaks open. Wang Rim comes striding out with excitement all over him, and smugness he is not bothering to hide, because the chi nourishing pill has been ferocious. His cultivation speed today outran anything he has managed before, and that sensation of inching toward mid-stage chi refining has left him refreshed in body and mind. At this rate he will absolutely break through before the assessment closes. As for that fellow Ryuk Yang, so what if he met some benefactor? His talent is nothing special, and it is unclear whether he can break through in time. The road of immortal cultivation is built out of solid real work, and nobody ever went far on luck alone. He stands in his doorway and looks haughtily across toward my residence. Then the smile freezes on his face as if the cold got to it. He sees me standing at my own door, and beside me there is a woman in the clothes of an outer sect disciple, with a face that is extremely beautiful. His pupils shrink and he stops moving entirely, as if the sky picked that moment to hit him. An outer sect senior sister. And that beautiful. That bastard has brought a senior sister like that back to his own residence. Wang Rim has no idea what their relationship could possibly be, and no idea how Emir Ryuk Young managed it. It lands like a fist in the middle of his chest, and the mentality he so carefully glued back together comes apart across the ground again. I have my hand on the door when a stare lands between my shoulder blades. I turn my head and find Wang Rim in the doorway of another room, mouth open, eyes locked, doing as convincing a stone statue as I have seen a living man produce. I raise an eyebrow and give him a nod with a smile that is not entirely a smile. Then I push the door open and bring Lim Young inside. The wooden door squeaks shut and takes Wang Rim off the board, and he stays out there without moving, beyond the reach of the mountain wind. The room is plain and holds what an entry-level disciple's dwelling is issued: a bed, a table, an oil lamp, and a meditation cushion. Lim Young's gaze goes slowly around it, and something nostalgic surfaces in her eyes. After all these years, she says softly, the entry-level dwellings have not changed one bit. I turn to look at her, curious now, and ask how long senior sister Lim has been in the outer sect. She pulls her eyes back and smiles and tells me she completed her assessment over 12 years ago, and that now she thinks about it, that really has been quite a while. 12 years. I look her over before I can stop myself, because she still looks like a girl of 16, and that poised, gentle bearing was clearly put there by time rather than luck. I tell her it puts her several generations ahead of me. Curiosity lights in her eyes too. She had taken me for a newly admitted disciple, and finding out I am an old-timer 4 years deep at entry level rearranges her assumptions. By any normal reading, a disciple who has not passed after 4 years is ordinary in aptitude and ordinary in family. This junior brother spends money like water and carries himself like something out of a painting. The thought circles her once and she lets it go, because a person's background is private and our acquaintance has not earned that question. She smiles gently and brings us back to business, saying these are the 100 herb pills I asked for. She turns her hand over and 2 round pills lie against her fair palm. They are light green all through, with fine patterns on the surface and a clean herbal fragrance that clears the head. I look them over and tell her the quality is excellent, and that I would expect nothing else from senior sister Lim. A touch of confidence settles between her brows. Her level in alchemy is not bad, she says, and anytime junior brother needs medicinal pills, he should come to her. I pour the spirit stones onto the table in a clatter, 150 low-grade spirit stones, and ask her to count them. She does not even glance down. She sweeps them into her storage pouch and says softly that she trusts me, and that plain, unhedged trust warms me more than I expected. So I think for a moment and ask whether senior sister has eaten. If she has not, the meal is on me, since she gave me such a large discount, and I would like to say thank you properly. She is startled for a second, and then her brows curve. She has indeed not eaten yet, she says, and she will not be polite about it. We walk out side by side and follow the mountain path toward the canteen, and the trip collects an astonishing number of stairs. An entry-level disciple in uniform with a beautiful outer sect senior sister beside him is not a combination this residence has been asked to process before. People glance sideways the whole way, unable to construct any story in which an official outer sect disciple has business up here. I keep my pace even and take her straight in. The moment we are through the door, the direction I turn makes her stop. She asks, hesitating, whether we are going to the spirit food window. She had assumed the meal I was buying her would be ordinary food. I look back at her and tell her, easily, that since I am treating senior sister, ordinary food will not do. She looks at my face, which the dim lamplight is doing nobody any favors about, and her ears quietly heat up. She opens her mouth to refuse, then remembers what I spent on medicinal pills this afternoon, and decides not to fight it. The same burly handyman is behind the counter. He recognizes me instantly, and a warm smile stacks itself onto his face, since hardly any entry-level disciple buys spirit food these days, and I am carved into his memory. Then his gaze moves to Lim Yong, and takes in that beautiful, refined face, and something clicks behind his eyes. A beauty like that at his side, and money like that in his pouch, means the senior brother is out of some major force. As for why a scion of a great family would be sitting in the entry-level dwellings this long, he very tactfully declines to think about it. His smile turns respectful and he bows slightly, asks what I would like today, and hands over the menu. I take it and flip straight to the back. My spirit stones are not plentiful, and they are more than enough for a few good meals. Expensive spirit food uses higher grade ingredients, so it tastes better and carries stronger medicinal effects, and the value is not necessarily worse than the cheap end. Not that value is a consideration. When you have money, the only question is whether you enjoyed yourself. I read off jade bamboo spirit marrow soup, 9 steamed spirit potato, braised spirit pork trotters, stir-fried spirit ganoderma, and honey-glazed bear paw in the tone of a man listing books he intends to borrow. Then I ask senior sister whether she wants to add anything else. Lim Yeong has gone quite still listening to this. She went through an assessment period herself and craved spirit food back then like everybody does. Her family's resources were tight. The rare meal she managed was always the basic tier, and she has never watched anybody go to war with a menu like this. She reaches over and tugs my sleeve, her voice urgent, telling me it is far too much, and that this is already plenty. If the spiritual chi cannot be refined in time, she says, it goes to waste instead. I tell her unhurriedly that of course I cannot finish it alone. Senior sister is here, and her cultivation is higher than mine, so she can eat more. Behind the counter, the burly handyman clicks his tongue, having concluded that scions of great families really will spend heavily to please a female disciple. Then he reconsiders, since this senior brother ordered expensively when eating alone too, so a few more dishes for two is arguably restraint. Seeing that I am not going to be argued down, Lim Yong can only nod, her tone going soft as she says it can stand, and that any more and she genuinely will not finish. The handyman nimbly produces all 5 dishes and adds 2 bowls of crystal clear spirit rice, laying everything on a wooden tray. 5 spirit food dishes come to 14 low-grade spirit stones. I pay without blinking, lift the tray, and turn around. The smell that goes up is worse than yesterday's and crosses the whole canteen like a tide. There is rich meat wrapped in the crispness of spiritual chi, the sweetness off the honey-glazed bear paw braided into the clean freshness of the jade bamboo spirit marrow. A chorus of swallowing goes up that sounds like a pond full of frogs starting an argument, and every gaze in the hall locks onto the tray in my hands. The verdict, delivered in whispers from about 30 directions, is that eating that well yesterday and this well today is a provocation, and that I might consider other people's feelings. Then they look down at their coarse tea and plain rice and find the food in their own mouths has turned to wax. I remain completely unaware of any of it, carry the tray to a quiet corner with Lim Young, and sit down across from her. She eats daintily and takes her time over every bite, and every so often she lifts her eyelids to steal a look at me. My charm sits at 1.1 now, and when I lower my head to eat seriously, the lamplight runs along my profile in sharp lines. What she is privately deciding over the soup is that on looks alone, this junior brother could rank near the top of the entire Jeomhong sword sect. And he is not only good looking, he has a good temperament, and he was willing to burn that many spirit stones to buy her a meal. Her cheeks color faintly, and her eyes catch light like stars on the surface of a lake. We finish satisfied. When we set down the bowls and chopsticks, we look up at the same moment, and neither of us can help smiling. That easy comfort after a full meal needs nothing said about it. Right then, a light screen surfaces quietly in front of me and a line of text unrolls. The system reports that the host has enjoyed a delicious meal in the company of a beauty, that his mood is happy, and that the reward is 500 low-grade spirit stones. My heart lurches. Another payout, and a bigger one than eating alone, though this time no rebate card is attached. The rewards really are random and the contents come down to luck. 500 is still excellent, and the meal cost 14. Eating and taking at a margin no honest merchant in this valley could survive. By the time we walk out, it is fully dark. The stars have come out thick enough that somebody appears to have upended a box of crushed silver across the sky. A full moon pours light like mercury over the stone steps and the pine forest. The night breeze carries the cool green smell of mountain vegetation across our faces. Lim Yeong stands in the moonlight with her black hair lifting, a few strands drifting against her fair cheek. She raises a hand to tuck them behind her ear, in a movement so quiet and unstudied that it fixes in my eye like a painting. She turns to me with a smile that has a little seriousness set into it. She has put me to great expense today, she says, and next time she will treat me. I raise an eyebrow and tell her lightly that senior sister said it first, so I will not be polite about it, and that I will hold her to it. She smiles at whatever my face is doing, then says softly that she will head back now. She tells me to go and properly refine the spiritual chi in my body and keep cultivating hard, because with my conditions she feels I should be entering the outer sect very soon. I tell her I will take her kind words as a promise. Then she turns and goes, her plain white clothes drifting in the moonlight, moving down the mountain path until the pine shadows close over her. I stay on the stone steps until she is out of sight, and only then do I pull my eyes back. I walk home under the starlight, and when the door opens, the faint bitter scent of the 100 herb pills is still in the room. I sit cross-legged on the cushion and do not close my eyes to cultivate, because there is one thing I have not collected. The extra reward the system promised for adding Lim Yong's contact information has been waiting on the panel all afternoon. I take a deep breath, settle my mind, and claim it. The system announces that the host has successfully added Lim Yong's contact information, and the rewards are the unlocking of the beauty module, 500 low-grade spirit stones, and 1 pair of black silk stockings. 3 separate rewards, one of which is an entire new functional module, and the whole package is far more generous than anything I let myself expect. The 500 stones go straight into my storage pouch, and with what dinner paid me, I am carrying over 1,200 low-grade spirit stones. My net worth is back into 4 figures, and so is my nerve. I decide to sit on them until I pass 1,500, since the consumption progress from the talisman shop is still logged. Adding this would land me on the conditions for the next level of Tycoon's confidence, and the income doubles again. Then I turn to the beauty module, which has already loaded itself onto the interface without asking. It lists Lim Yong as a beauty with a favorability of 62. Being accompanied by beauties is simply daily routine for a user of an urban rich man system. It explains in the voice of a thing that has never once doubted itself. The higher the favorability, the more detailed the information it will show me. I raise an eyebrow and tap into her entry with my mind, and what comes back is thin. Late stage chi refining, first tier peak alchemist. That is everything the module will say, and by its own instructions the depth of detail scales with favorability, so I am being rationed. I am not in a rush about it, so I open the detailed explanation of favorability instead. When a beauty's favorability reaches 60, 80, or 100, special rewards unlock. Reaching 100 opens something called beauty cultivation, where cultivating a beauty yields further special rewards. The system adds a small note asking how a god-tier tycoon's beauty could possibly be mere decoration. I read that line twice, and my expression does something I would rather nobody had seen. This module is more substantial than I assumed, with stage rewards on the way up, and a whole further mechanic waiting after the bar is full. I hear myself say the words cultivating a beauty out loud, and my mouth twitches. This is a raising simulation game. It has been dressed in cultivation robes and handed to a man in a mountain sect, and it is a raising simulation game. I stare at that perfectly earnest instruction for a while and then shake my head and let it go. This silly system came out of the factory bent in this exact direction, and arguing with it is not a use of my evening. As long as it pays, the form is its own business. So I keep reading and the explanation turns out to be clear enough. 60 favorability is the level of a confidant friend, which means Lim Yong genuinely counts me as somebody she can trust. 80 is the level of a lover, or as this world would put it, a Tao companion. 100 is the level of two people inseparable in life and in death. The system presumably gates beauty cultivation behind that because nothing weaker would hold the weight. I go through the whole module until I have the shape of it, and then my eyes land on her favorability bar. Sitting at the 60 mark is a small treasure chest, glowing faintly. Patient. I do not pretend to deliberate. I claim it, and the system tells me that Lim Yong's favorability reached 60. The host has obtained 1 low-grade rebate card, 500 points of cultivation technique experience, and 1 purple cloud pill nurturing robe. My breath catches. Another low-grade rebate card when I have personally watched what one of those does. I threw in a little over 300 spirit stones and pulled back over 200 and 200. And my capital tonight is far thicker than it was this afternoon. With a card in hand, the return on the next round is going to be genuinely frightening. I breathe out slowly, get the joy under control, and move to the second reward. 500 points of cultivation technique experience. My heart skips and something hot comes up behind my eyes. Because if this does what I think it does, it upgrades a technique outright. My gaze drops to the skill bar, where the heavy sword art reads level 2 at 32 of 200. The bar had only 11 points on it originally. It has crawled up by another 21 on its own, since my intelligence rose and my comprehension ability rose with it, with 2 days of cultivation on top. That is not the interesting part. I move my mind and spend the cultivation technique experience. The bar detonates. It is like watching a dam packed with floodwater give way at once, and the surging, tangled insight comes pouring into my sea of consciousness, with nowhere to go but into me. I can feel my grasp of the heavy sword art climbing at a speed that should not be possible. The obscure essentials of the sword art peel back layer after layer like bamboo shoots being opened, until what is underneath is clear all the way through. When the torrent finally settles, the text on the light screen quietly refreshes. The heavy sword art sits at level 4 with 32 of 400. I pull in a sharp breath. It went from level 2 to level 4 in one motion. I close my fists slowly and feel every thread of spiritual chi running smoother and more agreeably through my meridians. The method of executing the heavy sword art stands in my mind as though somebody cut it into the bone. My cultivation speed yesterday is not my cultivation speed now. I settle myself and look at the last reward. The purple cloud pill nurturing robe is a top-tier magic artifact, and wearing it calms the mind, deepens alchemy insight, and raises alchemy success rates. My heart jumps, because those are almost mythically rare. The sect market tops out at high grade, and nothing top tier is ever going to appear on a shop shelf. An item like this gets pocketed by the upper levels of a sect, or it goes to an auction house and sells for a number ordinary disciples repeat to each other as gossip. And it has just been handed to me for free. Then I read the attributes properly, and the excitement drains straight back out. The robe is precious, and the person it was built for is an alchemist. Only the common of the mind is any use to me during cultivation, and the alchemy insight and success rates are pure waste. I do not know alchemy, and I am not planning to learn it soon. Mastering a skill eats enormous time. The point of alchemy is earning spirit stones, and spirit stones are the one problem I no longer have. I look up at the crossed beams of the roof with my fingers tapping my knee, and after turning it over, I decide to give the robe to senior sister Lim. For one thing, it came out of the reward for her favorability hitting 60, so in a real sense it exists because of her. For another, this is a treasure cut to an alchemist's measurements, and giving it to her would raise her favorability by a considerable margin. If that pushed her past 80, another staged reward opens, which makes this the rare gift that pays the giver twice. The only trouble is that I have no idea whether senior sister Lim would accept it. I go back over everything she said today and my brows pull together, because she is clearly not a woman who enjoys taking advantage of anyone. A top-tier magic artifact that sharpens an alchemist's insight is far too heavy a thing to put in somebody's hands on the second day of knowing them. Hand it over carelessly, and the likeliest outcome is that I frighten her off. Better to wait and watch. Then I move my mind and take the robe out of the system backpack, and the moment it unfolds across my hands, the room seems to get brighter. The base is plain white with light purple cloud patterns winding along the cuffs and the lapels. The fabric is thin and light while still hanging with real weight, falling like water and carrying a quiet nobility in the way it moves. I hold it up to look it over, and my mouth twitches. The cut is not a man's cut. It is slim through the body with the waist drawn in and the hem left wide and flowing, which makes it a dress by any reasonable standard. Then again, it is going to senior sister Lim, so a women's cut is arguably the system showing initiative. I put it away carefully and turn to the last reward. The black silk stockings are also a top-tier magic artifact. Wearing them enhances escape techniques and movement skills, improves the defense of the legs, and on activation releases a spiritual chi shield that can block a full-force blow from a peak chi refining cultivation. When I take them out of the backpack, the first thing I notice is how thin they are, like a wisp of black mist that somebody talked into becoming yarn. My fingertips go over the surface and the touch is good enough to be a problem. There is a layer of extremely faint dark patterning woven into the silk, and held against the oil lamp the patterns flow with a faint spiritual light. And underneath all of that, no matter which way I turn them, the things are a pair of stockings. I tell the empty room that this is exactly what an urban rich man system would do, and that it knows the hobbies of a god-tier tycoon better than the tycoon does. The real shame is that a top-tier magic artifact cannot be torn at all, and destroying something this rare over a joke would be extravagant beyond forgiveness. As a grown man, I am not wearing stockings. Cross-dressing is not on my schedule in this lifetime or any other, so the decision takes no time. And these are going to senior sister Lim as well. The moment I settle it, her image arrives in my head uninvited. The gentle brows and eyes, the slender build, the skin white as snow. Then my imagination supplies what she would look like with those stockings on. Long legs wrapped in black silk thin as a cicada's wing. I clear my throat and shake my head hard enough to hurt to get the picture out of there. Stop thinking about pointless things. Cultivation is more important. The heavy sword art has just gone up 2 levels. And there is still spiritual chi left over from the spirit food moving through my meridians. This is exactly the moment to strike while the iron is hot. I put the purple cloud pill nurturing robe and the black silk stockings back into the system backpack. Then I tip a chi nourishing pill out of the porcelain bottle and swallow it. It melts the instant it touches my tongue, sending a stream of warmth down my throat into my abdomen before the spiritual chi bursts out of it. That spiritual chi fuses with the medicinal power still left from dinner, and the two of them surge together through my meridians. I hold my breath, fold my legs, form the hand seals, and slowly close my eyes. 2 levels of the heavy sword art turns out to be nothing like a small difference. The spiritual chi in my meridians moves as though it has grown a mind of its own, no longer stumbling and catching at every turn, running as smoothly as an extension of my own arm. Outside the window, the moonlight comes through the paper and lays a thin layer of pale frost across the floor in front of me. As the hours pass, that frost of moonlight shifts quietly across the boards. The night deepens. I do not move at all, entirely submerged in my cultivation. Morning light came through the window paper in a pale gold beam, dust motes turning inside it, white mist lying across the floor. I opened my eyes on the meditation cushion and felt the spiritual chi churning in my dantian, thicker and more restless than it had ever been. With the heavy sword art at level 4, spiritual chi ran through my meridians roughly 4 times faster than at level 2. Stack the chi nourishing pill and the spirit food on top, and one night had done the work of half a month of ordinary training. A month ago, the thought of failing to reach mid-stage chi refining this year had me unable to eat, and that worry had simply stopped existing. At this rate, the breakthrough would land in a little over a month. That put me short of the prodigies born with a peak-grade spiritual root, but comfortably alongside a high-grade genius. One of those cultivating on raw aptitude without pills probably would not even keep pace with me now, and that was only today. Once my spiritual root improved, the whole curve would jump again. Even in a top sect like the Jeomhong Sword Sect, which sits over the whole of Jin Province, disciples with a peak-grade spiritual root are close to non-existent. Someone like Senior Marshal Aunt Mock, whose root sits at the very ceiling of the ladder, might not turn up once in several hundred years. If that were not true, the sect master would never have been shaken awake by her arrival. I closed my fist and let the corner of my mouth go where it wanted, because whatever else was true, my prospects had completely changed. I got up, stretched, and yawned until my bones popped in a crisp little run of cracks. Then I twisted my neck and started my daily tasks. The daily tasks of the God-tier tycoon system were designed for a God-tier tycoon, which meant they assumed a man who needed to be nagged into jogging and reading. For a cultivator, that is barely worth calling exercise. The rewards, on the other hand, were absurdly generous. Attribute points and general experience, each one pushing my foundation forward in a way I could actually feel. I pushed the door open and stepped outside. The sun was climbing over the rolling peaks, cleaving the churning sea of clouds and gilding the whole range, and the morning breeze carried the cool green smell of mountain plants. I started my run along the mountain path. Around a bend, I came up behind 2 young girls in entry-level disciple uniforms walking side by side down the stone steps. They heard my footsteps, turned, saw me, and straightened up like soldiers. They greeted me as senior brother respectfully and in unison. That was new. Entry-level disciples who pass each other on the path nod at best, and nobody had ever handed me a formal greeting before. I gave them a second look, made a noise of acknowledgement, and ran on without breaking stride. Their talk followed me down the path in pieces. One was sure I was the senior brother Rook Yang who ate spirit food in the cafeteria every day, and both agreed that anyone eating that well had to be rich. One dropped her voice and admitted she would like to catch my eye. Her friend reminded her that the senior sister who ate with me last night was a proper outer sect disciple. Then they hurried off to buy pills, resolved to force their way into the outer sect and see me again someday. I ran a full lap around the disciple residences, and every entry-level disciple I passed was noticeably respectful. It took me half a lap to work out why. I had been ordering the most expensive spirit food on the board for days, and that is not the kind of thing a crowd fails to notice. I had no intention of dialing it back. A loose cultivator would have to worry about somebody putting a blade in his back over spirit stones. Inside the GM Hong sword sect, even a private duel has to be reported to the enforcement hall, and murder over money does not bear thinking about. There is something to be said for standing under a very large tree and for the pile of talismans and medicinal pills I was carrying. 10 days went by. I closed the tome of the cultivation technique one morning, let out a long breath of stale air, and called up the panel to take stock. The system told me that my physique had reached 3.2, that my intelligence sat at 2.3, and that my charm trailed a notch behind at 2.2. 10 days of stacked daily tasks had moved all three attributes in a way I could measure against my own body. My physical strength was now no worse than an early-stage chi-refining body cultivator who had done nothing but body refining for years. The intelligence gains showed up as raw comprehension, immediate and obvious. Even with the heavy sword art already at the 4th level, I had ground its experience to 366 out of 400 in 10 days. One step from level 5, tomorrow I could push it over. After that, the cultivation speed would climb again, and my earlier estimate of a month had not accounted for a cultivation technique breakthrough. Recalculating, mid-stage chi refining was maybe 10 more days out. During those 10 days, I had gone to the cafeteria at noon and at night without missing a meal, burning 11 or 12 spirit stones a day. To the other entry-level disciples, that reads as pure extravagance. Only I knew the stones in my pouch had not gone down at all, and that the faster I spent them, the faster they piled up. I had over 1,600 low-grade spirit stones saved, enough to push Tycoon's confidence up another rank. The last chi-nourishing pill in my hands went down that morning, so a restock was due anyway. Buying medicinal pills also gave me a clean excuse to ask Senior Sister Lim to walk around with me and nudge her favorability upward. Even without the rewards attached, strolling a market with a beautiful Senior Sister is not a chore. Cultivation is a grind that runs tight every day, and a mind wound that tight eventually snaps something. I had already reached her through my sect token and knew she was selling medicinal pills at a market stall today. I tidied up and pushed the door open. The mist in the mountains had burned off, and the pine forest stood green against peaks half drowned in the distant sea of clouds. The wind came over the treetops carrying pine resin and turned earth. I went down the mountain path toward the market. The Jiam Hong Sword Sect market sits in a valley, and it was as loud and crowded as ever. Shops stood in neat rows along both sides of the broad stone street. The crowd between them was Jiam Hong Sword Sect disciples in every grade of uniform, scions of influential families, and dusty loose cultivators in plain clothes. Hawking, bargaining, and the clink of spirit stones braided into that particular earthy noise a marketplace makes. With the Jiam Hong Sword Sect presiding over it, this market is among the safest in Jin Province. As the son of a small family, I have seen other markets, and politely put they are a mixed bag. Honestly put, they are hunting grounds where evil cultivators wait for somebody weaker to walk past. Here, no evil cultivator comes close enough to try, which is why loose cultivators will spend extra days on the road to trade in this valley. My sect token got me through the inspection checkpoint without a pause. I checked the location Senior Sister Lim had sent through sect transmission, picked my direction, and walked the stone road until her stall came into view. The surprise was who stood beside her. Instead of the two outer sect senior brothers from last time, there was a female cultivator I had never seen, also in an outer sect uniform, tall and slender, hands clasped behind her back. A long sword hung diagonally across her back in a plain ancient scabbard that leaked a thin, chilling edge of aura. Her brows and eyes were full of a gallant, sword-bright spirit, her nose bridge high and straight, her eyes as deep as an ancient well. Standing there, she looked like a blade that had not been drawn, and her face was, by a fraction, more beautiful than Senior Sister Lim's. The system informed me, without ceremony, that a 10 out of 10 beauty had been discovered. I raised an eyebrow and sighed inwardly at my own life. The world of cultivation really is a place that manufactures beauties. Back on Blue Star, you could go a whole generation without producing a 10 out of 10, and here one was, standing behind a medicinal pill stall. One of them gentle as a little white flower, the other gallant as a sword immortal. The two of them worked like a pair of magnets on the whole street, and every gaze in the crowd bent toward them. Customers kept slowing in front of the stall, pretending to study the pill bottles while their eyes went where their eyes wanted. Every time a look lingered too long, the woman with the sword raised her eyes and swept the offender with a glare that had an actual edge on it. Even from a distance, I could feel the thread of sword intent folded into that gaze. Cultivators changed expression, remembered the outer sect uniforms in front of them. and hurried off with their heads down. Senior Sister Lim turned and asked her friend, without much hope, to please rein in the sword intent, since she was frightening away the people who genuinely wanted to buy medicinal pills. Jin Namwol curled her lip and asked why Young did not simply sell the pills to the sect instead of hauling everything out here. Sitting behind a stall struck her as a waste of a morning. Lim Young looked at her helplessly. Her best friend had been raised in a Golden Core clan with every resource she could want, so the arithmetic of a stall was never going to land for her. She explained it patiently anyway, since the sect's purchase price runs below market, and a stall costs effort but earns a few more spirit stones. Dan Peak disciples have fixed alchemy tasks to hand in every month, and anything they refine beyond quota belongs to them. The sect will buy that excess at roughly 0.5% under retail, which sounds like nothing until you are the one refining bottle after bottle to survive. The family behind Lim Yong could send her almost nothing, so every spirit stone she owned had come out of her own furnace. Being careful with money was not a personality trait for her. It was the job. Jin Namwol, direct descendant of the Golden Core Jin family, had never once lacked a cultivation resource. She drawled that fine. Their Young was diligent and thrifty, and everyone was very impressed. Then something occurred to her, and she leaned in and asked why Lim Young had suddenly wanted company at the stall today, when she never had before. Lim Young's gaze flickered, and a figure came up unbidden, a young man climbing the stone steps of the mountain path in the sunset light. She remembered his serious focus while he ate, and that offhand remark about kindred spirits that had made her face go hot. She pushed the ripple down and said that with Namwol standing there, the clingy pests would not dare follow her. Jin Namwol crossed her arms and complained that she was being used as a bodyguard. Lim Yong pressed her palms together with the girlish playfulness that only came out around her closest friend. She told her she was the best, and promised her a meal since she had been planning to visit the market anyway. Jin Namwol could not hold her stern face. She told Lim Young to remember that promised meal, then said she was far too easygoing, and that if those flies came back, the correct response was to swat them dead. Lim Young rolled her eyes and said she was not blessed with combat power and a solid background. Jin Namwol let the subject go and patted her on the shoulder. With her alchemy talent, she said, the inner sect was a certainty, and with a little luck she might end up an alchemy elder of Dan Peak. Longing crossed Lim Young's face, and then she shook her head gently. The inner sect was already the biggest thing she let herself want. Entry there requires a cultivation base at Foundation Establishment as the floor, and with her alchemy she would not be scraping the bottom once she arrived. A stable position meant she could send something home and let the people she loved live better. An inner sect elder needs a golden core, and even with a high-grade spirit root, condensing one without massive resources is roughly as easy as climbing into the sky. She was still turning that path over in her head when she caught a figure moving through the crowd. She knew that figure far too well. These past few days, every time cultivation left her a quiet moment, it had walked into her head uninvited. The regular features, the ethereal bearing, that curve at the corner of his mouth when he spoke, and made a person feel inexplicably at ease. She stood up from behind the stall almost without deciding to, and a smile bloomed on her face that carried a brightness her usual gentleness never allowed. A thought arrived with it. Junior brother Ryuk's talent did not seem all that remarkable, and if he also failed to reach the Golden Core someday, perhaps the two of them could hold each other up on the way. She stamped that out immediately, ears burning. What exactly did she think she was doing? With his bearing and the way he spent, his background was probably no worse than Namwol's. Even with a medium-grade spiritual root, a man with that many resources behind him had far better odds at a Golden Core than she did. Beside her, Jin Namwol had been standing with her arms folded and boredom setting in, when the smile blooming on Lim Young's face stopped her cold. They had known each other for years. Young was always gentle and reserved, polite to everyone and genuinely open to almost no one, and only in private with her closest friend did a few real smiles come out. This smile was bright and vivid and carried an eagerness Lim Young clearly had not noticed in herself. It was very obviously not meant for Jin Namwol. So who was it for? A sourness she could not name welled up in her chest. She followed the line of Lim Young's gaze and found a young man walking toward them through the crowd, and when she saw his face clearly, a single thought detonated in her brain. He was too exaggeratedly handsome to be legal. His features were impeccable, and his bearing was ethereal, faintly wrong for a market street. In all that noise and shoving, he seemed to walk with his own soft focus, and every cultivator and stall around him dropped into background shadow. Her second thought followed on its heels. An entry-level disciple, and how had she never heard of him? She had spent years here and seen countless handsome and talented people, and never once anyone who looked like this. I was used to being stared at by then. With my charm value going up 1/10 of a point every single day, my face and bearing improved on a schedule. The contours of my features had barely shifted, but the overall harmony kept getting quietly optimized so that people found me easier to look at and harder to look away from. What changed most was the bearing. It had gone clear and ethereal, with a tranquility in it like something in harmony with heaven and earth. Sometimes I genuinely wondered whether the charm value would stop, or whether I would keep going until I looked like the legendary immortals. At the entry-level disciple quarters, I could not step outside without gathering an audience. The female disciples sent looks over in waves, with an intensity that suggested they were considering swallowing me whole. Being too handsome turns out to be its own species of trouble. I had braced for the staring before I reached the market, and it never once let up. I have gotten very good at not noticing. I walked straight through the onlookers to the stall, gave senior sister Lim a warm smile, and told her I had arrived. Jin Namwol's head whipped around. Her eyes went wide and she stared at Lim Yang with an expression of pure shock and accusation. It said her best friend was clearly seeing someone and had not breathed a word of it. Then she stole another look at me and added a silent second charge to the indictment. The man was far too good-looking as well. Lim Yang looked at my smile and went blank for a moment, unable to shake the feeling that a few days apart had somehow made this junior brother better looking. The young man in the morning light had exactly the same features as before, and yet every last detail had gone impossibly right. She pushed the strange feeling down, put her usual gentle expression back on, and asked what medicinal pill I wanted today. I asked for the chi nourishing pill without any hesitation at all, and told her I needed more this time, 10 bottles. I intended to fire the rebate card off this purchase, and the more I spent, the more came back. The chi nourishing pill is a flat necessity at chi refining, and 10 bottles only looks like a lot given the rate I was burning through cultivation. She was taken aback, then said softly and a little apologetically that she only had 5 bottles with her, refining chi nourishing pills each time, and after clearing the sect's monthly tasks, she had to balance whatever remained against her own cultivation. 5 bottles was all she had brought. I waved it off and told her I would take the 5 now, that she could hand over the rest once she had refined them, and that we would settle as 10. She shook her head repeatedly and said we should settle for 5, and that I could buy more next time. I met her eyes squarely and told her that trading 1 bottle at a time was a nuisance. I would give her the spirit stones now, and when the rest were finished she could send them to my residence. I trusted senior sister not to pocket them. I did not add that I needed this transaction to be large enough to trigger the card. Paying for 5 bottles would have been a waste of a good rebate. Her earlobes went warm at that. She was quiet a moment before nodding. Since junior brother Ryuk trusted her that much, she would keep refining the chi nourishing pills at home and send them the instant they were ready. I thanked her for the trouble. Jin Namwol had stood to one side through all of it, listening to us go back and forth. Hearing me ask for 10 bottles without a pause put a flicker of surprise in her. 10 bottles runs to well over 1,000 low-grade spirit stones. For her that meant nothing, but for an ordinary chi refining cultivator, producing that much at once puts you in a small minority. And this junior brother was willing to pay in full up front and walk away with half the goods. That told her 2 things. The sum did not strain him, and he genuinely trusted Young. Interesting. She had never heard of a disciple like this. She finally spoke up with teasing in her voice and asked Young whether she was going to introduce him. Lim Yang hurried through it. I was junior brother Ryuk Yang, currently in the assessment period. The woman with the sword was her best friend's senior sister Jin Namwol, a direct descendant of the Golden Core Jin family, and one of the top 10 in the outer sect. Jin Namwol's gaze settled on me with undisguised curiosity, and her lips lifted as she greeted me as junior brother Ryuk. Behind the greeting, she was running a search. Under the jurisdiction of the Jiamhong sword sect, which Golden Core clan carried the surname Ryuk. She thought about it a long while and could not put a name to it anywhere. I was busy being surprised by the other half of that introduction. The Jiamhong sword sect has hundreds of thousands of outer sect disciples, and simply getting in the gate means a medium-grade spiritual route and a past entry assessment. Ranking in the top 10 of a pool like that is not a small thing. I straightened, bowed, and told senior sister Jin she was genuinely impressive. She waved it away as a little family influence, then asked which family junior brother Ryuk came from. I smiled and said my family's strength was quite average, nothing that compared to senior sister Jin's. She pursed her lips at me, not believing a single syllable, and said that if I did not want to say, then never mind. Average family strength. Could a child of an average family buy medicinal pills like that? She privately concluded I was hiding my background, and probably came from the territory of some other major sect rather than anywhere local. I looked at that expression of total disbelief and felt genuinely wronged. I had told her the flat, unvarnished truth, and she had filed it as a modest deflection. Since the matter was not explainable without a much longer conversation, I dropped it and turned back to Lim Yang to ask for 2 bottles of chi recovery pills alongside the rest. I had bought detoxifying pills last time and only remembered on the walk home that I had prepared nothing at all for restoring spiritual chi. Better to fix that in the same trip. She drew 5 bottles of chi nourishing pill out of her storage pouch, added 2 bottles of chi recovery pills and lined them up on the stall. Then she totaled it at 1,600 low-grade spirit stones. That number had been rounded down and quietly discounted, and arguing would only embarrass us both. I hauled a large pile of spirit stones out of my pouch and dumped them on the stall in a clattering hill of flickering light. Half the street turned to look, envious. She collected them one by one, deft and composed, as if she handled that much every week. With the transaction closed, I looked up and asked whether she might pack up the stall, since she had sold plenty today, and come for a walk. She raised her eyes, met the expectation in mine, and felt her earlobes go red again, which clearly annoyed her. She nodded gently and said that worked, and that since I had treated her to spirit food last time, this one was on her. Jin Namwol's expression turned subtle. She looked at Lim Young, then at me, then back. Normally this girl would calculate for a long stretch before parting with a few extra fragments of spirit stone, and eating spirit food out in the market was unthinkable. And here she was volunteering to pay for someone else. There was definitely something going on between these two. Something sour turned over in her chest, and she folded her arms and asked Young Young what about her, since she had been promised a meal as well. Lim Young gave her an annoyed look and could not keep the smile off her face, saying of course it was together and she would treat her too. Only then did Jin Namwol lift her chin and pronounce that more like it. I had no reason to refuse. She packed up the bottles and jars, rolled the cloth, and the three of us set off along the bluestone street, toward the depths of the market. Walking, I turned my attention inward and used the low-level rebate card. The system confirmed the designated consumption and rolled the random reward multiplier at 5, then congratulated me on 8,000 low-grade spirit stones. Fivefold, the maximum. I looked at the bright string of numbers on the light screen, took a deep breath and let it out slowly. Keeping the grin off my face in front of two women who thought I was normal took real effort. 1,600 low-grade spirit stones had multiplied straight into a full 8,000. Save a little more and I would have the nerve to walk into an auction house and bid on a top-grade magic artifact. Several restaurants in the market specialize in spirit food, and the most prestigious is the Jeonhong restaurant, run directly by the sect. Even the facade outclasses everything around it. The 3-story pavilion is built into the mountain terrain with soaring eaves, vermilion pillars, and carved railings. The giant black plaque above the entrance carries 4 gold characters written with enough force that sword chi seems to move through the strokes. Even the greeter at the door is a utility disciple. Sect disciples eat here at a discount, and back when I was broke I knew the name and nothing else. Inside, a faint scent of sandalwood met me, tangled with the fresh fragrance of spirit food. The beams and pillars carried the sect's sword emblem, and the 4 walls held ink-washed landscapes with real concept in them. The tables and chairs were cut from century-old spirit wood, the grain fine enough to pass light. The hall held dozens of tables, most already full, cups clinking and spiritual chi and fragrance rising together. The staff were utility disciples, and they were sharp. One saw the sect attire on the 3 of us, and came over at once asking whether we wanted a private room or the main hall. Senior Sister Lim did not even pause before asking for a private room. We followed him upstairs and into a room called Autumn Water, and sandalwood rolled out at us the moment the door opened. The room was neither big nor small, with a round spirit wood table in the center and pale green gauze curtains on the walls. The window looked out over the sea of clouds, and one look at that view told me what this room cost. Jin Namwol was clearly a regular and took the seat by the window without hunting for it. She propped her chin on one hand and flipped lazily through the menu, her eyes ticking back and forth between Lim Young and me. She dragged her tone out, all amusement, and observed that their Young was willing to splurge today, which was rare indeed. Lim Young felt a small panic at how blatant that was, and stole a glance at me. My expression was normal, and I did not appear to have heard anything under the surface, so she let out a quiet breath of relief. Then she glared at Jin Namwol and told her through her teeth to eat more later and keep her mouth busy. Turning back to me, her tone went soft and warm as she asked me to order. Jin Namwol propped up her cheek and watched me with open interest, saying nothing to stop me. She had eaten here more times than she could count, so ordering or not ordering was the same to her. What she did not intend was to let Lim Young overspend today, and she did not know yet how this junior brother Ryuk would order. If he picked expensive dishes and burned through everything Young had earned with her own furnace, she would be having a private conversation with her friend. Perhaps their concepts of money were too far apart, and in that case less contact would be better. But if he showed a sense of proportion and thought about Young at all, that changed things. Her gaze went over my face again, and she admitted inwardly that she would not mind her good sister having a romance. The appearance was flawless, the background looked excellent, and if the character held up, honestly speaking, Young would be the one marrying up. I flipped the menu open, ran my eyes down it, and was immediately speechless. Same ingredients, same grade of spirit food, and the Jeonhong restaurant charged 50% above the sect cafeteria. Braised flame-horned wolf meat costs 3 spirit stones at the residence, and here they change the plating and it becomes 4.5. If I were paying, A little extra would not matter because a god-tier tycoon does not pinch pennies on food. But senior sister Lim was treating, and every spirit stone she owned had been earned over a pill furnace. Ordering expensive dishes on her money was not going to happen. Last time, at the cafeteria, she had told me to order less. Honestly, if we had not already been seated in a private room, I would have suggested walking back to the cafeteria instead. I grumbled internally and slid my finger down the reasonably priced entries. I asked for roasted spirit lamb chops, honey-glazed roasted spirit chicken, golden needle jade soup, and red bean spirit rice, and said that would be enough for us. I had not finished before Lim Yong objected. She frowned slightly and told me, with some seriousness, to order more, since the two of us had eaten more than that last time, and there were 3 of us today. Jin Namwal, on the other hand, raised an eyebrow and let her gaze toward me soften. The roasted spirit lamb chops and the honey-glazed roasted spirit chicken are 2 of the cheapest meat dishes on the menu, and this junior brother was quite deliberately saving young money. Not a bad person after all, she decided. I smiled and gave them the reason. Last time we ate at the residence cafeteria and could go straight back to our rooms to meditate and refine the spiritual chi. This was the market, over an hour from home, and eating too much here meant the spiritual chi would go to waste. Tasting was enough. Lim Young pursed her lips and let her eyelashes drop, because she could tell perfectly well that it was an excuse. Whether or not the spiritual chi would be wasted, the shape of the gesture told her exactly what I was doing. She did not argue the point. She took the menu back and added 3 more dishes herself, and those 3 cost more than everything I had ordered put together. I did the arithmetic quietly, and the table was going to come to nearly 30 spirit stones. Since she had ordered them with her own hand, there was nothing further for me to say. The utility disciple came back and worked fast, lifting the dishes out of a storage pouch 1 plate at a time and setting them down still steaming. Every one of them looked and smelled outrageous, and the table sat under a slow swirl of spiritual chi while the mixed fragrances filled the room. He bowed and shut the door gently behind him. Jin Namwol swept a glance over the loaded table and raised an eyebrow, observing that Young was really bleeding money today, so they had better eat well and waste nothing. I nodded along and picked up my chopsticks. Lim Young smiled and said nothing would be wasted, since she could pack up whatever was left. We ate and talked, or rather they talked and I listened, while the 2 of them traded news about the outer sect. Everything I knew about it came from a few brief lines in the introductory manual. Listening to 2 people describe their actual daily lives in it, the place was considerably more complicated than I had pictured. Formal disciples in the outer sect draw a fixed monthly stipend of 20 low-grade spirit stones. Anyone who wants more goes to the affairs hall and takes missions, patrolling the mountains, clearing out monsters, gathering herbs, running escort work. The rewards vary, and completing a mission earns both spirit stones and sect contribution points. Being an outer sect disciple is emphatically not a license to live on a stipend. At the end of every year, the outer sect runs a comprehensive exam, and the 500 who finish at the bottom are demoted to outer sect deacons. A deacon's stipend is cut in half to 10 low-grade spirit stones with a mountain of miscellaneous chores on top. Better off than a utility disciple, technically. Advanced utility workers, in practice. I nearly choked on my soup. A year-end stack rank cull with the bottom 500 fired downward into a worse job. I had not expected the competition in the outer sect to be that brutal. There was more. Apart from the disciples of Dan Peak, Artifact Peak, and Talisman Peak, disciples of every other peak must complete 1 sect mission each year, and that rule cannot be dodged. The 3 craft peaks instead carry monthly production quotas for alchemy, artifact refining, and drawing talismans. I had already been carrying an impression that the whole Juomhang sword sect ran like one enormous corporation, everybody with deliverables and a performance review. Listening to these 2, the impression only got firmer. Jin Namwol took a sip of soup and set her spoon down. The outer sect assessment was somewhat heartless, she said, but anyone who made huge progress in a year or ranked high in the exam got extremely generous rewards. She considered that a form of encouragement from the sect. Lim Young nodded along and added that the support Namwol received from the sect as one of the outer sect's top 10 was already not a small amount. That got my interest. I put down my chopsticks and asked whether the rewards were all spirit stones. She shook her head and counted them off on her fingers. Spirit stones, certainly, but far more than that. Advanced magic artifacts, rare spirit fruits, cultivation techniques and spells unique to the sect, and whatever you lack the sect provides. My eyes kept getting brighter as she went. If it were only spirit stones I would not have cared, since I had 8,000 in Tycoon's confidence quietly printing more. But cultivation techniques, spells, and rare spirit fruits are not things money buys. The sect's exclusive techniques require formal disciple status plus contribution points, and they are not sold in the outer sect market at any price. Seeing that she had moved me, she pressed on. Disciples from Golden Core families travel thousands of miles to the Jiamhung sword sect precisely for resources like those. Once I entered the outer sect, I should fight for a good ranking. The first place every year is promoted to the inner sect early, straight through the rules, and chooses an elder to take them as a disciple. I sighed and told her, with some helplessness, that I really was not a disciple from a Golden Core family. Her expression did not shift by a hair, still wearing that half smile that means, "Do you think I believe that?" Beside her, Lim Yong was smiling gently and clearly not taking my words seriously either. I gave up. Believe it or do not. We talked and laughed and our chopsticks never stopped, and before we noticed the table had been stripped clean to the empty soup bowl. The three of us leaned back, thoroughly satisfied. Jin Namwo rubbed her stomach, grinned, and thanked Young Young for the treat. Lim Young glared and declared that next time it was her turn, and that she intended to eat her losses back. Jin Namwo waved that off as generously as if she had paid herself, then said that when she treated next time, junior brother Ryuk should come along. I was not going to refuse, so I thanked senior sister Jin in advance. Behind the agreement, I was doing different arithmetic. This senior sister Jin was a 10 out of 10 certified by the system, and if a favorability module opened for her, the rewards would be real. More friends, more roads, and more female confidants. More rewards. There was no version of this wave that lost money, so I took the opening and suggested that senior sister Jin and I add a sound transmission mark, since it would make contact easier next time. Beside me, Lim Yong's fingertips trembled against her teacup. She set it down and lowered her eyes to the clear tea inside, and something sour she could not name rose in her chest. Why had junior brother Ryuk taken the initiative to exchange sound transmission marks with Namwo? Then she shook her head at herself, because the two of them were ordinary acquaintances, so what right did she have to have an opinion? Jin Namwo did not overthink it and agreed at once. In her reading, my background was clearly not simple, and staying on good terms with a disciple from a major power is never the wrong move. Beyond that, spending more time around me let her keep an eye on things for Young Young. The girl was too soft-hearted by half, and would end up counting out spirit stones for a scammer with a nice face. We touched our sect tokens together, and the marks were exchanged. I put my token away, turned to Lim Yong, and let my tone go serious. I told her I had a gift for her. She blinked, looked up, and asked with real confusion what gift. Jin Namwo raised a curious eyebrow and turned my way as well. After my performance with the menu, she had formed a decent opinion of this junior brother, and with a background like mine, whatever came out could not be too bad. Under both their gazes, I smiled slightly and tapped the storage pouch at my waist with my right hand. A stream of plain white light shot through with purple poured out of my palm, and the purple cloud pill-nurturing robe unfolded in my hands. The spiritual chi in the room seemed to shift on its own. The robe had a plain white base with lavender cloud patterns winding along the cuffs and lapels, flowing without stopping, as if alive. The fabric was light and thin, draping like water, with a magnificence coming off every thread. Spiritual light moved across the surface, and the whole robe sat inside a faint lavender mist that did not belong to the mortal world. The room went quiet. Jin Namwol stared at the robe and her pupils shrank. As a direct descendant of the Golden Core Jin family, she had been trained to judge quality since childhood, and the moment a magic artifact showed its spiritual light, she could grade it accurately. It was exactly because she could tell that she was so shocked. She lifted her head and asked, half breathless, whether that was a top-grade magic artifact. Even coming from the Golden Core Jin family as a direct descendant, Jin Namwol owned exactly 2 top-grade magic artifacts. Things at that level are never simply bought with money. Artifact refiners capable of crafting one are rare to begin with. Their success rate is appalling, and every piece that reaches the open market is targeted immediately by the major powers. Some of the stronger ones can trade blows with the low-grade spiritual artifacts that Foundation establishment cultivators carry. In an auction house, it is not remotely strange for one to go for tens of thousands of low-grade spirit stones, and if the bidder is desperate, the price climbs from there. And she was watching junior brother Ryuk take one out and hand it over like a bag of fruit. Even she could not produce a gift of that caliber. Giving it away was not the issue, since she would not have dared imagine owning it. If that was how Jin Namwol felt, Lim Yong's state hardly needs describing. The instant that pale purple light came up, she had sensed the robe was extraordinary, and once her friend's exclamation landed, she froze. Her red lips parted, her gaze locked on the robe, and her mind went blank until she forgot to breathe. A top-grade magic artifact. In her understanding, those words sat about as far from her as the stars did, and her whole family straining together could not have obtained one. And junior brother Ryuk was saying he wanted to give it to her. I took in both reactions and kept my voice level. It was a top-grade magic artifact I had obtained by chance, I told them. The robe calms the mind and improves alchemy insight and success rates, which made it useless to me, and senior sister Lim was the most suitable person for it. Jin Namwol's whole frame gave a small shudder, and her voice climbed several notches as she asked whether it was actually a top-grade magic artifact that improved alchemy. The way she looked at me had changed. She told me, flatly disbelieving, that I clearly had no idea how precious this thing was. Skill-improving top-grade magic artifacts are rarer than combat ones, and the price of this robe was likely higher than an average low-grade spiritual artifact. Put in front of an alchemist who truly needed it, a sale at nearly 100,000 low-grade spirit stones was not impossible. 100,000 low-grade spirit stones. The number came down hard enough to stop the air in the room. I raised an eyebrow. I had known top-grade magic artifacts were precious, but not that they were that expensive. It was only a mild surprise, since I was not short of spirit stones in the slightest, with 8,000 in my storage pouch and Tycoon's confidence feeding the pile every hour. Set against that, handing the robe to Lim Yong bought me favorability rewards worth actual power and possibly cultivation technique experience on top. As deals go, that was better than 100,000 stones. My expression did not change and my tone stayed gentle. However precious a top-grade magic artifact is, I said, it has to be in the right hands, and Senior Sister Lim was the person most suited to this one. Jin Namwol opened her mouth and could not get anything out for a long moment. She had underestimated me completely. She had guessed I was a Golden Core clan descendant like herself, and now that guess looked far too small. As a direct descendant of the Jin family, she knew that even a power like hers would never casually hand out an alchemy-boosting top-grade magic artifact. For a large family, a thing like that is a strategic resource, reserved for cultivating the family's core alchemists. A powerful alchemist supplies a continuous stream of high-quality pills and lifts an entire generation, and that value does not convert into spirit stones, and I had just given it away between courses. She turned to look at Lim Yong, still sitting there lost, and a faint envy welled up in her. Young really did have good luck. Junior brother Ryuk was genuinely good to her, pushing something like that into her hands with no calculation visible in it. She poked her friend gently in the waist under the table, and Lim Yong jolted back into her body. Jin Namwol leaned close to her ear and told her, with a hint of teasing, that junior brother Ryuk had just given her an enormous gift and she ought to say something. Only then did Lim Yong wake up properly, and her first reaction was not joy, it was panic. She waved both hands, her usual gentle composure gone, and said in a hurried voice that the gift was far too valuable and Senior Sister could not take it. Her eyes went to the robe anyway, and a longing she could not disguise flickered deep in them. What alchemist would not want a treasure like that? It was because she was one that she knew how terrifying its value was, and she could not have afforded it if she sold herself along with it. Junior brother Ryuk was handsome and a good person, and she genuinely counted him a friend, which was precisely why she could not take something this precious with peace of mind. Watching her refuse in a flustered heap surprised me not at all. After several meetings plus the intermittent chatting over sect tokens, I had a rough read on her. She looks gentle and yielding, and underneath there is a line she does not cross, which is that she will not accept a huge gift for no reason. From the day the robe landed in my inventory, I had been turning over how to get it into her hands without tripping that reflex. So I smiled and offered the workaround. If Senior Sister Lim would not take it for free, she could consider it lent to her and she could pay the borrowing fee in medicinal pills. Her fingers, which had been twisting the corner of her clothes, loosened. Lending. If it was lending, would that be all right? She knew perfectly well that no ordinary alchemist could even find someone willing to lend out a top-grade magic artifact at this level. But the word lending sat better in her chest than the word giving, and she could repay it in pills. Her eyelashes fluttered and a thin layer of moisture came up in her eyes, and the roots of her ears went red. How could she not understand? What I had said was a way to let her save face, and lending and giving were the same thing wearing different clothes. I simply wanted her to use the robe without guilt. Junior brother Ryuk was truly mischievous, she thought, and then the next thought arrived on its own. Why is he so good to me? Jin Namwol watched the two of us without a word, her gaze moving between Lim Yong's crimson profile and my composed smile. This junior brother Ryuk, Young was not going to be able to handle him, and would most likely be eaten alive. And yet he was genuinely good to her, so genuinely that a bystander could not find a single thread to pull. Lim Yong was still twisting her fingers and hesitating, so I stood up. The chair legs scraped softly as I came around the table to her side. The distance closed all at once, and she could smell the faint crisp scent of morning wind on me, and felt her shoulders tremble. I leaned down and put the purple cloud pill-nurturing robe into her arms, cool and smooth, like a purple cloud dropping into her hands. I told her it was settled, in a voice that was neither loud nor soft, and left no room to argue. From here on, I would be relying entirely on Senior Sister for my medicinal pills. She looked down at the robe in her arms, faint purple light moving over it, and her throat closed. She opened her mouth several times before any sound came, and what finally came out was a small, unsteady question about whether I was not afraid she would take the artifact and run. I straightened up and gave her a bright, sunny grin and told her I trusted her. That smile landed somewhere in Lim Yong's chest, and the whole private room seemed to brighten for a second. Her breath caught, her heart felt as though an invisible hand had squeezed it and let go, and hot blood rushed up until her fingertips went numb. She swallowed, found her brain had turned to mush, and could only nod at nothing in a voice thinner than a mosquito. Jin Namwol rubbed her forehead and watched her good sister short-circuit, annoyed and amused. Could this girl not hold herself together for 5 minutes? She got the eye roll under control, picked up her teacup and took a long swallow. She had thought Young would last longer than this, and a few sentences from him had left her unable to tell north from south. She set the cup down and told Young to focus on her alchemy and produce more good pills, so that maybe someday she could formally buy the artifact from junior brother Ryuk. Lim Yong came back to herself, looked down at the purple cloud pill nurturing robe, and traced the flowing cloud patterns on its surface with her fingertips. She pressed her red lips together, said nothing at all, nodded once, and put the robe carefully away into her storage pouch. I watched all of it from the side and felt a weight come off me. It was done. While the two of them talked, I let my eyes lose focus and pulled up the confidant list, the way a man might check a ledger under the table. Lim Yong had crossed the 80 mark, and something was glowing quietly there, a treasure chest waiting to be opened. I took a careful breath and did not let it show. The robe had been tailored for her in every way that mattered, and it punched through the threshold in one move. Her favorability was already 62 at the end of our very first meeting, which raises the uncharitable suspicion that senior sister Lim judges very heavily by faces. Senior sister Jin sat at 22 after a whole morning in my company, and the gap spoke for itself. Either way, the treasure chest was mine. I made myself not open it at the table. That robe was so worth giving away. I pulled my attention out of the panel and said that if they were finished eating, we could go. Lim Yong's face still carried an unfaded flush, and she nodded with a faint sound of agreement. Jin Namwol glanced at her sitting there downcast and obedient like somebody's new bride, and her heroic eyebrows twitched. She sighed inwardly, stood and stretched generously, the line of her waist clean and dashing, then told us to move. The three of us left the private room and went down to the ground floor. Lim Yong was still floating somewhere, and at the counter she had to count her spirit stones twice before the number came out right. Jin Namwol shook her head through the whole performance, and to her credit, did not tease her out loud. Back on the bluestone street outside, the afternoon sun had shifted and now came in at an angle across the pavilion eaves, laying down patches of light and shadow. The crowd had not thinned, and flashes of spiritual light and bursts of shouting came from every direction. As we walked, I checked my wealth figure out of habit. Over 8,000 low-grade spirit stones. Call it a lot and you are right, since it buys several second-tier talismans and a few bottles of second-tier medicinal pills only Foundation establishment cultivators can use. Call it a little and you are also right because it is nowhere near a top-grade magic artifact worth wanting. A god-tier tycoon's artifact has to be top-grade, and I had developed a firm contempt for ordinary goods. I raised my head, let my gaze travel over the crowd, and landed on the tallest pavilion at the far end of the market. It was built of mysterious gold with upturned eaves and a stern presence, easily the most imposing building in the market. I asked how long until the auction the sect ran. Jin Namwol followed my eyes to the golden pavilion, said about a month by her count, then asked whether I was hunting for something. I nodded frankly and said there were plenty of good things at a sect auction, and that with luck I might find something useful. The high-grade magic artifacts and first-tier medicinal pills on the market shelves had stopped interesting me. If I am buying the best. She said we should go together, since she also wanted to see whether anything worth acquiring turned up, and Lim Yong surfaced from her daze and hurriedly said she wanted to come too. I looked at the pair of them, raised my eyebrows, and said that with two beautiful senior sisters keeping him company, this junior brother could hardly ask for more. Lim Yong's face flushed red on the spot. Junior brother Ryuk had called her a great beauty. Did that mean junior brother Ryuk liked her a little? And if he did, would she be against becoming his Tao companion? Her thoughts came loose and drifted somewhere she had not authorized, and when she caught up to them her face burned harder and the tips of her ears went scarlet. What kind of shameless nonsense was that? Jin Namwol took in the entire weather system crossing Lim Yong's face, and was torn between exasperation and laughter. One offhand remark from this junior brother had bewitched the girl like that. She turned her head, looked at me, and curled her lips into something faintly mocking. Junior brother Ryuk was quite the smooth talker, she said, and she wondered how many young girls that mouth had deceived. I did not feel remotely guilty. I met her gaze and let my smile deepen a fraction, saying that other young girls did not have the beauty of the two senior sisters in front of me. She found herself unaccountably uncomfortable under a stare that direct. Her heart tightened for no reason she could justify, and she looked slightly away, though her mouth gave no ground. That was only because I had not officially entered the sect yet, she said, and there were a great many beautiful senior sisters and junior sisters inside. We would see whether I still remembered that line afterward. Then she took Lim Young's hand and quickened her pace up the street. I watched their backs go, one upright and gallant, one slender, and followed at a leisurely distance. My goals for the trip were complete. I had restocked medicinal pills, fired the rebate card, and unloaded the purple cloud pill nurturing robe. As for the black silk stockings sitting in the system backpack, that was not a today problem. Even with the borrowing excuse, the robe had come close to frightening Lim Young out of the restaurant. Hand her a second top-grade magic artifact in the same afternoon, and she would simply refuse. Better to wait for an opening that arrived on its own. Lim Young had the robe every alchemist dreams about, and was impatient to test it. Jin Namwol went where Lim Young went, and I needed to chase a breakthrough. The three of us agreed with no friction, left the market, and took the mountain road home. Back inside the sect, I said goodbye at a fork in the path and walked alone to the entry-level disciple residences. I shut the door, sat down on the cushion and opened the panel with no patience left at all. Tycoon's confidence went first. Spending over 1,000 spirit stones had satisfied the upgrade condition long ago, and one thought made the panel flash and settle. At its 4th rank, Tycoon's confidence paid out 8 low-grade spirit stones every hour, on the reasoning, helpfully supplied by the system, that money is the confidence of a god-tier Tycoon. The next upgrade would cost 10,000 low-grade spirit stones. 8 an hour, 12 hours a day makes 96. Never mind chi refining, there are early-stage foundation establishment cultivators who do not pull in that kind of income. The threshold for the next rank had jumped hard, so I could no longer buy my way up with casual money. With over 8,000 banked and the rate climbing, it would take about half a month. Then I moved my attention to the favorability rewards. This time it was not only Lim Young, because adding Jin Namwol's contact information had triggered a reward of its own. The two hung side by side on the panel waiting to be opened, and I took a breath and claimed them. The first told me that the host had successfully added senior sister Jin Namwol's contact information and paid out 1,000 low-grade spirit stones plus a luck trait called Sword Skill Apprentice. The second told me the favorability of my confidant Lim Young had reached 80 points and handed over an intermediate rebate card, 2,000 cultivation technique experience, and 1 red cloud pill heart furnace. Something new had shown up. My eyes fixed immediately on those 2 words in the first message, luck trait. That was a category the system had never produced before. I pushed the excitement down and opened the details, where the system named it Sword Skill Apprentice and set it at low grade. It explained that the trait nudged my Sword Dao aptitude up a little and quickened my Sword Dao cultivation technique and spell cultivation by 20%. Sword Dao aptitude improved directly. My breathing picked up on its own. Aptitude is supposed to be the one thing you are stuck with. I ran the numbers fast. Could the 20% stack with the bonus coming out of my rising comprehension? My comprehension had already been climbing on the back of the intelligence attribute, and a dedicated Sword Dao multiplier laid over that would send my speed with sword techniques somewhere unreasonable. Then another prompt floated up to tell me that with my first luck trait obtained, the luck module was officially unlocked. A new interface opened on the panel, listing exactly 1 entry, Sword Skill Apprentice at low grade. I stared at that low grade label for a while. Where there is a low grade, there is a medium grade, and a high grade, and presumably things above that. 1 low grade trait was worth 20% on Sword Dao cultivation speed. What does a medium grade do, and a high grade? I stopped that train before it left the station, because if I kept riding it, I was not sleeping tonight. Although, hold on, this is supposed to be a god-tier tycoon system. Why does a system built for buying penthouses and eating expensive dinners hand out luck traits that improve cultivation aptitude at all? What did the urban model give people? Something to keep a tycoon's kidneys in working order, presumably. I could not make the pieces fit, so I filed the question away. It was a good thing, and more good things is better than fewer good things. I went back to counting. 1,000 low-grade spirit stones credited, which on top of the 8,000 and change already there took me across 9,000. Having the money is one problem, and knowing what to buy is another. And since I had not settled on a direction for the next big spend, I let it sit. Next came the real prize out of Lim Young's 80 points. The intermediate rebate card. I opened the description and could not keep the grin off my face. Specify a consumption, and receive a random rebate of 5 to 10 times what was spent, starting at 5, going to 10. The low-level card topped out at 5, which means the intermediate card's floor is the old card's ceiling. Spend 10,000 spirit stones and up to 100,000 comes back, at which point the stones cannot physically be spent fast enough. Even on mediocre luck, 7 or 8 times leaves the low-level card in the dirt. After that, the cultivation technique experience. A full 2,000 points, sitting there waiting. I stared at that number with real hunger. How high would 2000 push the heavy sword art? One thought dumped the entire pool into it, and a complex, profound flood of insight surged into my sea of consciousness. There were the movement trajectories of the sword art, the resonance between spiritual chi and sword momentum, the hidden barriers at the border of each stage. Everything obscure went clear and transparent in a single moment, and the experience bar climbed like something possessed, straight out of level 4 into level 5. And then it stopped dead. There was still experience left in the pool, and it would not go in. The heavy sword art had reached perfection. When performing the heavy sword technique, the time needed to gather the strike was cut by 30% and its power raised by 50%. I sat there stunned, then simply blank. Was that ceiling there because the heavy sword art is only a yellow rank technique? Or does every cultivation technique cap at level 5 and call it perfection? I had no way to know yet, and would find out after cultivating a few more. The leftover experience had nowhere to go, so it stayed in the pool. The perfection effect itself was nothing short of astonishing. The heavy sword technique is the spell that pairs with the heavy sword art, issued to me by the sect when I started, and I had never found the time to touch it. With the heavy sword art now finished, the obvious next move was to start on the heavy sword technique and cash that perfection bonus in. That could be tomorrow's job. Finally, I looked at the third item out of Lim Yong's rewards, the Red Cloud Pill Heart Furnace, and then my eyes went wide. It was a top-grade spiritual artifact, refined from red copper essence gold, the furnace body engraved with 7 pill fire formation patterns, capable of significantly improving both the success rate and the quality of second-tier medicinal pills. I actually gasped out loud in an empty room. Between a spiritual artifact and a magic artifact, there is the chasm of an entire major realm. Because magic artifacts are what chi-refining cultivators use, and spiritual artifacts belong to Foundation establishment. Top-grade magic artifacts already make cultivators swarm, so a top-grade spiritual artifact does not need arguing for. And this one improves the quality of the pills that come out of it, which makes it a supreme treasure an alchemist would not dare put in a daydream. I sat back, mildly speechless, and noticed the pattern. Whatever confidant's favorability chest I opened, the contents came out shaped like that confidant. Lim Yong is an alchemist, and every magic artifact her chest produced was for alchemists. Jin Namwol carries a longsword, which makes her a sword cultivator, and sword cultivators are the majority in the Jeomham sword sect. So the luck trait from her chest pointed straight at the sword Dao, which raised an awkward question. If senior sister Jin's chest eventually produces a top-grade sword Dao artifact, that would be enormously useful to me personally. Do I hand it over to raise her favorability, or do I keep it? I sat cross-legged on the cushion and decided to worry once the thing was in my hands. For now, the only priority was cultivation, because I wanted to see how hard a maxed heavy sword art could hit. I took out a chi-nourishing pill and swallowed it. It melted the instant it touched my tongue, and a warm, pure medicinal force spread through my abdomen and began fusing with the spiritual chi left in me from the spirit food. I breathed in, closed my eyes, formed the hand seals, and started the circulation. Out in the outer sect, the mountain path wound ahead through gravel and pine. Lim Yong and Jin Namwol walked it side by side toward the outer sect plaza. The whole way Lim Yong looked distracted, her eyes unfocused and her steps unsteady, as if the ground were made of cloud. Jin Namwol watched this and sighed. Then she put an arm around Lim Yong's slender waist and leaned close to her ear. In a warm breath, she asked whether her soul had come home yet, or whether she was still thinking about that junior brother Ryuk of hers. The two of them were good sisters who told each other everything, and that much closeness was nothing unusual. The words, though, went across Lim Yong's heart like a feather. Her face flushed, rose at a speed you could watch, and even her neck took on a pink stain. She went stiff all over and defended herself in a panic, asking what that was supposed to mean and insisting that junior brother Ryuk was not hers. Her voice got smaller with every word, and the last thing out of her was that the two of them did not really have any relationship yet.